Welcome back to the Rodcast. We like to call it a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! Football 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk about the Cowboys win. They needed to get back on the winning track. That's exactly what the Cowboys did over the Giants. They still have the Giants number now, winning 14 of the last 15 versus the New York Giants. We'll get into that game. We'll talk about it a little bit. Also, we'll get into Texas' upcoming opponent. Talk about Texas game coming up versus Mississippi State. As a matter of fact, Steve Sarkisian spoke to the media again, and we'll get into that. Speaking of Steve Sarkisian, he did give us an update on the Texas quarterback situation, and we will update you with that coming up a little bit later on in this segment. We'll go behind the burnt orange curtain next segment, talk a lot of Texas football. Big game coming up this weekend in the college football realm. You got Georgia versus Alabama, top 5 matchup. We'll dive into that matchup a little bit. Other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Got to talk about the Texans. They got a game coming up versus the Jags. We'll preview that. And we also got all your usual favorites on the show, of course. We got Raj Rant. We got Who Said That, What the Facts, What the Stats. We got Off the Record. We got the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We are loaded as usual on a Friday, and we appreciate you joining us. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis. Yo, what's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It's a Friday morning. I'm ready for another fun-filled football weekend. Enjoying some stuff, watching Texas go off again. That number's dropped to 37.5, though. A little worried. I don't know. They see something there. 37. We've dropped a point and a half now. That's crazy.
It's uncertainty at QB. Like just uncertainty overall. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. Uncertainty at the quarterback position.
Yes.
Will do that.
To drop it from 39 to 37.5.
There you go. Hey, money's moving in Mississippi State's direction. It's a good sign. I don't know. They don't. That's, by the way, we don't know who their quarterback. We know who their quarterback's going to be, but it is an inexperienced, unproven commodity too. So I don't really know how that actually tracks either. Because if you're looking at Mississippi State, that number probably should be rising because they lost their starting quarterback for the year. So I don't really understand that.
And condolences to anyone who bet on the Cowboys to cover yesterday. 5.5 to 6 points was about what you got, and
I think we were discouraging that. You listened to Aubrey. I said they'd win.
No, but Aubrey, who is automatic, missed that field goal. That's the cover. Yeah. But he has been automatic, and if you saw, I made sure to go on X afterwards just to see the implosion of people who had taken that and got that bad beat. That they were like, all right, they got the stop. Here comes the field goal. We cover. It's nice and easy, and that implosion came in very quickly.
That's how football go. That's how football go.
I do love that anytime someone loses a bet, then Vegas is rigged. But every time they win a bet,
and the NFL is rigged, exactly. No, it's never rigged for you. It's always rigged against you. Yeah, rigged is always against you.
Yeah, exactly. It's always against you. But that was
a great point.
But yes, it was one of those ones that you were watching last night, and he missed it, and he just went, "Ooh, it's a bad beat on a cover." When you have one of the most automatic kickers in football right now. That
you know what happened? People were prematurely celebrating. They were counting their money too early. Everybody was like, "Oh, Aubrey, we good? Yes, this is my thank you, Mike McCarthy. Thank you, Cowboys." They were counting their money too early. Football guys don't like that. Got to be gracious and still humble during that time. And but you're right. I thought it was for sure too. I couldn't believe it. I remember saying something like to my wife. I was like, he might be the best kicker in the league now. That's done. And I walked away to go do something else. And then she was like, "Oh, he missed it." And I was like, "What? Of course he missed it," when I'm bragging about him and talking about how he's the best kicker in the league. Potentially. I was like, "Of course." Maybe like an idiot. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. So, I don't know how he missed that. That was crazy. It was very nonchalant, though. He was, I don't know. It felt like he was nonchalant.
It felt like, let me go put this game away and we'll just hit this and we'll move on. And then, it didn't. Luckily, you had Daniel Jones and no Malik Neighbors on the other side. So that kind of shut down anything major happening.
That's true. But I would say we have been telling you about the big dogs all week long. So I'm just saying that if anybody discouraged you, we from taking the Cowboys in that, we were talking about taking the big dog. I said the Cowboys would win, but I think we've been giving you the number. In fact, I'll go find it about the big dogs. I think they're having like the best year they've ever had. A big dog is I believe, an underdog of at least 5.5 or 6 points. And that's a big dog. And they're having like the best year in the history of the NFL. And they were, I believe the Giants were they were like 5.5 or 6, depending on what line you were looking at, somewhere around there. I'm with you. I didn't have money on it, but I would have picked the Cowboys to win, but not to, because I didn't think the Cowboys' rush defense would be that good, which we'll talk about.
Yes.
But it was great, actually. It was fantastic.
It was very good.
Good on the Cowboys.
Who else is fantastic? My co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you for the compliment. Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, the Cowboys. I mean, that was one of the best rush defense performances we've seen from the Cowboys ever. I mean, the Cowboys defense allowed just 26 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
It was the fewest yards allowed on the ground by any team in the NFL this season.
It
went from the worst rush defense in the NFL to having one of the best individual game performances from a rush defense, in actually the best performance in a single game from a rush defense so far this year. Of course, that's the Cowboys. You just can't figure out the Cowboys. You can't figure them out. But I'm glad you saw improvement. That was just improvement you did. Overall.
And it's always a key of the Cowboys, which is when they play teams they're supposed to beat and they play bad teams, they're really good. And they can show out in those games. And then it's when you get in those big matchups that you don't know what team is going to show up. So sometimes they do play good against better opponents. They don't always suck against better opponents, but they usually against bad opponents are able to come out and take control. And that's what they did, at least defensively. Overshawn looked amazing in that game. He was everywhere.
Team in tackles.
He was everywhere.
6 tackles. He was great. I think he might. I mean, he's going to play more. I mean, I think there's no doubt about that. Yeah, he's playing more now. I think he proved himself. They need him. Somebody like him. I mean, he plays like his hair's on fire. He's all around the football everywhere. You need a presence like Demo. So I agree. I think he's gonna play more for him. And the D tackles played better. I mean, considering the opponent, of course, yeah. I'm with you. I mean, they'll play some much better teams than the Giants. The Giants are a team that's struggling, but still, we just need to see them show up in the run, in their run defense, and that's exactly what they did. They looked much better. They just looked more fundamentally sound, more gap sound. Guys were setting the edge, like we talked about, holding point, penetrating, making plays in the backfield. So I think the Cowboys, at least that's a good starting point. Yes, you got to do it against better competition, but that's a really good starting point for the Cowboys. That was pride. That you can tell that was just pride more than anything. For the Cowboys defense. They got tired all week long. People like me, people on TV talking about how bad they were, giving stats and about historically terrible their rush defense was. And they went out there against the Giants and they showed up as a unit overall, as a group. So that, like I said, that's a good starting point for them. Next week, different discussion. That was on a short week too. I'll give them that. That was on the short. That's probably why he had so many guys go down.
And
you had a ton of guys go down, including Micah, which we'll talk about, but you're a lot of guys.
And they need to fix that MetLife turf. That turf just claims souls, man. That is the amount of injuries that happen on that field is ridiculous.
Yeah, you had DeMarcus Lawrence went down at one point. Micah Parsons, of course, he went off twice. Went off for a stinger once, but then, of course, late in the game, you had the injury. Hell, Malik Neighbors and him was back to back.
Yeah.
Malik Neighbors, I believe that was back to back. It was a third down and a fourth down. Malik Neighbors left. He ended up with a concussion in that game. Yeah, I mean, Trevon Diggs left at one point the game. I mean, the Cowboys, it was a kind of a battle of attrition there, and the Cowboys, they found a way to pull it out. It was ugly, wasn't pretty, but they found a way to pull it out. We'll go through all the details. Even the penalties made it hard to watch. I mean, that was. It seemed like every 3 or 4 plays that was a penalty. I mean, it was, they had 15 penalties, I believe, on the night total. 11 on the Cowboys, which we'll get into because that also led to why the Cowboys offense looked so clunky. The rush defense improved. I'm not sure the Cowboys have a run game yet, though. And it was better. But it's still not.
It was in the fourth quarter when they really needed it. It was better. For the first 2.5 quarters, it was still complete garbage.
It's improved.
But by the end of the game, they started to figure it out a little bit. But yeah, the first 2.5 quarters, it was the leading rusher was CeeDee Lamb for the first 2.5 quarters.
Yeah.
So it was really bad. You did have Dowdle get that big catch out of the backfield. That was a touchdown, but it was a catch. It was not a run.
Yeah.
And they still have to figure that stuff out because it was still not good. But there's plenty.
81 yards, something like that. Not bad.
Yeah, it was.
So it's not. It's right now. I agree with you. It's still one of the worst in the NFL. But they got to get better every game. That's what the Cowboys are now at this point with their run.
They do have to get better every game. But again, you realize next week you go up against the Steelers. And so it's just a different. I know the Steelers are not this super talented, over the top, all these people everywhere, but they're playing really good and they're tough. And it's going to be a stark difference for what you played this week. So you are going to have to take the long week. You're going to have to recover a lot of players because everyone just seemed like they were really beaten up after that game. And then
short weeks do too.
Figure something out because you can't play that game again against a better opponent.
No, but also don't go into that game ignorant and banging your head against a brick wall because you keep trying to run it. Sometimes it's kind of wasted down against a team like the Steelers, especially with your running game being what it is. So I don't know what the game plan really is going to be. That's going to be interesting. I got to dive into that matchup, but Cowboys should celebrate. That's a good win for them. CeeDee Lamb reemerged. He had 100 yards total, but almost 100 yards receiving. He had that big touchdown. So it looks like some of the pieces coming together for the Cowboys, but that always is the case versus the Giants, and they own the Giants.
Yeah.
They've been beating the Giants forever. As long as I can remember, they've won 14 to 15 versus the Giants. I think Dak has won like 13 in a row versus the Giants. That's what they always do versus the Giants. So the test will be, how do they look versus the Pittsburgh Steelers next week? I agree with you on that.
And I'll give McCarthy credit that he went for it a little bit more aggressive early to get touchdowns when we said you have to score touchdowns early to not allow the Giants just to be able to kick field goals and go
the tempo.
So you had to score some touchdowns to at least put a little bit of pressure on the Giants, and they did that.
They did that. I agree with you. And they, not enough. It ended up being kind of an ugly game, but you're glad you got out to that lead because it was important. It was important getting out to that lead, the way the game worked out. All right, we'll get back to breaking down the Cowboys. We'll also give you an update on Texas quarterback situation, or at least the latest update that we have from Steve Sarkisian about Texas's quarterback situation. So we'll do that on the other side. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros head to Cleveland tonight to begin their final game of the final series of the regular season with the Guardians. The Astros are locked in at the 3 seed, so may rest some players through the series, while the Guardians are still competing with the Yankees for the number 1 overall seed in the AL East. Roniel Blanco is scheduled to get to start tonight for Houston. The Rangers lost to Oakland last night 3-2 in the final game in the Oakland Coliseum. Kumar Rocker pitched 4 2/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, and the Oakland crowd of 46,889 stayed for the final pitch as Janikowski grounded out to third. The Rangers take on the Angels this weekend to finish off their season with Jacob deGrom scheduled to take the mound. In the NFL, the Cowboys held on to beat the Giants 20-15 on Thursday Night Football. The Dallas defense held the Giants to 26 yards rushing and no touchdowns, but lost some key players with Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons all leaving the game with injuries. The Texans take on the winless Jaguars in an AFC South battle on Sunday as Houston hopes to rebound from a tough loss to Minnesota last week. And in college football, number 7 Miami takes on Virginia Tech tonight as Cam Ward continues his campaign for the Heisman. While on Saturday, number 20 Oklahoma State plays their second top 25 matchup in a row, facing number 23 Kansas State. Number 16 Notre Dame gets a test with number 15 Louisville, and the huge SEC matchup of number 2 Georgia trying to take out number 4 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Coach Sark said yesterday that it will name his starting quarterback for Saturday today as Texas will take on Mississippi State at 3:15 to begin their SEC schedule, and that is your Horn Headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. You heard it there, but let's hear it from Sark himself. He spoke to the media yesterday. We'll hear from him about a lot of different topics next segment where we go behind the burner curtain, but specifically about the quarterback situation at Texas. Here is Steve Sarkisian.
We're going to decide on the quarterback thing tomorrow. And again, it won't be a secret. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Just want to give Quinn every opportunity to see if he's ready to play and what he looks like. But I'd say he's improved every day. I think Arch has had a very good week. And I would say this, Trey Owens probably had his best practice as a Longhorn today. So that was really encouraging as well.
Okay. So what does that mean? Because last time, I think Sark was, I think he threw out the news on Thursday. So giving Quinn every opportunity to get healthy. I mean, they're monitoring it even now. Maybe they're gonna let him throw today and see how he feels, or maybe they threw heavily on Thursday with him, and then they want to see how he recovers and how it feels today. Maybe that could be part of it. I think ultimately this means that Arch is starting. I think that's what it means.
Yeah.
And we talked about this yesterday. If you're still unsure when you're talking about like 24 hours potentially before the game, then why risk it?
Yeah,
because it's no point. If you're still now, this could just be gamesmanship. It could just be Sark forcing Mississippi State to still have to prepare for two quarterbacks. But at this point, that's not a lot of advantage you can gain from that, because they've done all their install and practicing at this point. Friday, they're not doing anything on Friday. So to me, revealing it late yesterday after they've already practiced, there's really that's to me when you've gained as much of an advantage as you can with the gamesmanship. So it could be, that he's doing that, but like I said, I don't think he gains much of an advantage, or he actually is trying to, give Quinn as much time to recover as possible and give him to the last minute for the trainer's evaluation to see if he can go. But my point is, if you're at that point, then just let Arch start, because if you're uncertain 24 hours before the game, then there's too much risk involved at that point.
Yeah,
it's not worth it with Mississippi State.
Yeah, this feels more like, giving Quinn the benefit of the doubt because he is your leader and your starter, and you don't want to just tell him, no, I know you think you can go, but we're just going to sit you anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think that's more of, man, you've been working really hard in practice. You're busting your butt trying to get back out there. I don't want to diminish anything that you're doing. So let's have the tough conversation tomorrow when you wake up. And I think you're right. I bet he threw the ball a lot yesterday. And it's like, I want you to come in today. And most likely, I feel that you're going to walk in and be like, I'm still a little sore. You'll be like, okay, if you're still a little sore, let's take the week off. Let Arch go out there. Trey Owens had a great week, so we know we've got him as well. So why don't we just go ahead and let this go? But it's much more, I think, of letting Quinn, who's probably had a really hard week and a week busting his butt trying to get out there on the field, not just diminish what he did.
A courtesy, basically, for your quarterback.
It's respect. It's respect for your starter that you really put a lot on his shoulders. So you're just giving him a little bit more respect, but it makes sense. And then also just be like, Quinn, I want you 100% ready on Monday because we're starting practice for OU on Monday.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I know we got a bye week, but on Monday, or maybe we get the day off on Monday and you start on Tuesday, but whatever it is.
It'll probably be a bye week schedule, but we need to be full throttle.
Yeah, we need to be full throttle getting ready for OU, and I need you to be 100% when we start that practice. And so I'd rather not put you in the game. And that conversation you can have on a Friday, and it won't mess up your week of practice or anything else. So I could see that as well. But it does seem, without naming him the starter yesterday, it seems more and more like Arch is going to get the start.
Yeah. Which from day one, I've said that should be the plan. Yeah, there's no need to unnecessarily risk your starting quarterback, with a re-injury or for the entire season, when you have the luxury of this kind of stretch with playing a ULM, playing a down Mississippi State, and then having a bye week. It's almost a perfect stretch for someone to recover from an injury like that. And give your young quarterback, Arch Manning, multiple starts to work through some of those growing pains. And we saw some of those growing pains in the ULM game. And I can't wait to see the exponential improvement you get from start 1 to start 2. So my preference, and I believe, just as I was a coach, and I'm not Sark's all right, doing a great job. But if I was in his position, I said from day one, I just throw Arch out there. I think the way Patrick's talking about, the way he handled his method, was probably due out of courtesy and respect for Quinn, just period, as the leader, and just giving him the kind of the motivation to continue to work to try to get back. But I bet from the jump, maybe Sark was reluctant to give Quinn give him that, full support that he was going to end up being the starter for the Mississippi State game. It's just, an injury like that, non-contact injury out of nowhere. There's no telling exactly how you hurt it, really, and doing a throwing motion, and then you could re-injure it at any time. So give it as much time to heal. I think that's the plan, but we shall see. It's not going to be confirmed until today, but I believe that's where we're trending. All right, we'll get to some more Sark audio on the other side, and we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian about their upcoming opponent and about the Longhorns in general and their status as the number one team in the country. But let's talk about the Cowboys, and let's start with the defense, because we were really critical of the defense. Everybody was, because it was honestly, just talk about it. It was the worst rushing defense in the NFL. And historically, it was one of the worst rushing defenses in Cowboys history. And they went into that game against the Giants. And like I said, Devin Singletary was actually one of the more elusive backs in the NFL. We gave you that number, third in avoided tackle rate. He had the third most forced missed tackles, I believe, in the NFL at the time. And Dallas held the rushing attack of the Giants to 26 rushing yards on 24 attempts, just a little over 1 yard per carry. Dallas allowed, going into that game, a league worst 5.4 yards per carry. Here, they're allowing 4 yards after contact per carry. And in this game, they allowed the fewest yards on the ground by any team in the NFL this season. So that was a hell of a change. And they lost some guys. DeMarcus Lawrence went down the game. Michael Parsons left the game twice, once for a stinger. And at the end of the game, of course, he left the game. It was carted off because of an ankle injury. Just an update on that, because, of course, that is for Cowboys fans, top of mind. The X-rays, apparently was carted off to the X-ray room. X-rays were negative, but he's going to undergo an MRI today. And he says, quote, I think the quote is from John Machota, "I'll be good," and he wants to play next week. He said he wants to play. He's going to try to play next week, but he was carted off and he has an ankle injury. He said he doesn't know the severity of the ankle injury. So both of your edges left that game. DeMarcus Lawrence he left with a foot injury and did not return. Then Michael Parsons has that ankle injury that he's dealing with. I think Trevon Diggs is okay because he was in the post game doing an interview. So I believe that means he's all right, but we'll have to see.
They said in game it was just cramps and that they took him to the locker room to get him an IV, but he was still on the bench basically after getting an IV and trying to hydrate and everything, still kind of looking like he was in a lot of pain. So it seems like it was probably just cramps, but it doesn't seem like it's anything more, but it's something. Yeah, you'll just monitor the injury report as it comes out, but you had a long week. He'll probably be able to recover. He seems like he'll be okay. They need him because with Kalen Carson being out, you saw early on that was a problem.
Man, yeah. Well, we told you guys Malik Neighbors is going to be a problem. I mean, that dude's he's legit. He had 12 receptions, 115 yards. Man, if he would have caught that for that fourth down on the sideline, I ain't gonna lie. Daniel Jones, I thought, played a good game.
Yeah, didn't play bad.
Daniel Jones played one of the better games I've ever seen Daniel Jones play. I know people were criticizing the fact that he didn't throw the football downfield, but neither did Dak. Dak didn't throw the football downfield. I think Dak didn't even have a pass over 20 yards in that game. And I think that was all by design. We talked about how the Giants actually had a good pass rush this year. They were second in the NFL in sacks going into that game. And I think the Cowboys were giving up an average of 3 sacks a game. I think it was intentional that they weren't going to have, a vertical element really, or at least a lot of vertical shots in the game plan, because they wanted to insulate the pass protection with the quick game. And that's exactly what they did. If you go look at Dak's passing chart in this game, I mean, like I said, he didn't have a pass over 20 yards, didn't have a pass over 20 yards, and he connected 13 of his 14 passes. He was 13 of 14. He was 22 of 27 overall, but he was 13 of 14 passing the ball under 2.5 seconds for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they were getting the ball out quick. I mean, that was quick game. That was underneath, and the longest connection he had was a pass, like I think around 17 yards down the field. They just didn't push the ball down the field. They didn't really believe that, they could do it offensively, or would have the time, I think, to do it offensively. I think that's what they were concerned about. So Dak just ate him up with the short underneath game and did a good job. I mean, that was by design. So I think he was sacked once. He was hit like 3 different times. But I think it was by design. They didn't go downfield a little bit more. And like I said, I thought Daniel Jones actually played a decent game. He was 29 of 40, 281 yards. But in the fourth quarter, that's when the Cowboys defense, and give them credit, a lot of this was they did some of this without DeMarcus Lawrence and Michael Parsons going down in that game and Trevon Diggs having his issue. I mean, you lost some of your top defensive players, and yet still you didn't collapse in that game late in the game. You held Daniel Jones to 7 of 15 in the fourth quarter, 45 yards. So, I mean, that's, like I said, defense stepped up. It is the Giants, understood that. But hell, Demo even went down. DeMarvin Overshawn went down once and then had to leave the game for a little while. So he just had, it was a game we had to battle through adversity. It wasn't pretty. It was an ugly game. Cowboys still found a way to pull it out. But like I said, Malik Neighbors, that dude's the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna be a star.
No, he had that one pass, that one route early where he just juked the guy out of his shoes and got wide open down the sideline. It's like, oh, that's not good early in the game. Yeah. But I think too, you saw Daniel Jones. Part of it is that Cowboys defense early was really, really trying to set the tone on the run game, and it worked. But they were leaving everyone on an island. There was no help in the backfield. Everybody was on man and by yourselves because they just couldn't afford to put anybody back at all. Everyone had to be at the point of attack on the line of scrimmage to be able to stop that run. And then by the fourth quarter, you could open it up a little bit because you would discourage that run game so much that they weren't really going to run it. You had the lead. You knew they needed to pass more. So you could push it back a little bit more and solidify that pass defense a little bit more in the fourth quarter. But you could tell early on it was at times 8 guys attacking at the line of scrimmage, which are like, if you can't win at the line of scrimmage with 8 guys and they're blocking with 5, that is Mike Zimmer needs to be fired. This is a problem. Like, but
they were stacking the box before, and it wasn't having as much success. But
I don't know if I ever saw them that heavily, fully everyone attacking, because I think they stacked the box and then didn't literally send every linebacker also at the point of attack. And this one looked like it was a little bit more of that, but it whatever it was, it worked. The run defense worked, and you were able to set the tone early enough that when you got to later in the game, you were able to drop back a little bit more and not have to put yourself on such an island out there and not allow a quarterback and then a wide receiver like Malik Neighbors to just try and get that little bit of space and create a big play.
Yeah, because I mean that's all Daniel Jones was looking for. I mean, he 23 of his 29 completions came to Neighbors, either Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. 23 of his 29 completions, which is just those 2 guys. So you know where he was going with the football. They really didn't have a lot of other weapons for him to go to in the passing game. And once Malik Neighbors went down with the concussion, then I mean that's really I think when their passing game just disintegrated totally.
Yeah.
But you're right. The Cowboys, I mean they've loaded the box before. I mean they were loading the box, putting 8 guys in the box or more at the 4th highest rate in the NFL going into this game. This game, they were just more effective. They just had more gap integrity. They were more fundamentally sound. They set the edge. They played with a lot more, I think they played with a lot more intensity and urgency on defense. And so maybe it was embarrassment. They were just embarrassed about their performance, and it was just pride that was on the line too. Whatever it was, it worked. They got to try to replicate that over again.
Yeah,
and
I did
think it was
funny to see they did shadow Malik Neighbors at the end of the game too with Trevon Diggs when they realized they couldn't allow him to be a matchup nightmare for them on like that 3rd and 4th down. They did shadow him just because they realized we can't allow him. We can't allow the Giants to get a matchup they want at this time. We have to put Trevon on Malik Neighbors. He's the guy.
Yeah, exactly. Because you realize like Daniel Jones not looking at anybody else. Like he's not. He didn't even care about getting the ball to anybody. And you can tell by the way they were using him. Here's this stat to back up what Patrick is saying. Malik Neighbors finished with why the Cowboys had to shadow him. He finished with 12 receptions for 115 yards on 15 targets, 9 receptions on 10 targets when he was going in motion. So what I always talk about targets to motion, 9 receptions on 10 targets when he was the motion man on targets to motion. And Neighbors says 9 receptions in motion are the most by a player in a game since 2018. So targets to motion. Remember I tell you about Sark's targets to motion. They are it's basically the primary routes, right? This is your primary receiver. I'm putting him in motion because you are going to get him the ball. I'm literally scheming this guy open for you. All right, and trying to hide him within the offense, or I'm hunting a matchup with him when I'm targeting a player that's in motion. And for the Giants, that's basically how they were trying to hide Malik Neighbors, or hunt a matchup with him. And a lot of the times he was the primary. They were just like, hey, Daniel Jones, go to him. Now you'll be able to tell they're man if they follow him all the way across. If they don't, they're bumping it. They're probably in zone. And then you just need to find that dude. Y'all just need to play. Yep. But it's a 2-man game. Y'all, you and him. And they did that against Cowboys. So that's why, like you said, they said, we got to shadow him. Because he's just, that's all they're doing right now. That's just hiding him within the offense.
That 9 out of 10, that 10th one was the one he got hurt on the miss, on the incompletion.
And
on the
it was a good throw.
It was a good throw. But it was
a perfect throw.
Decent defense, good enough defense. But
it was a good play all around. It was, except for Malik. She probably should have caught it, but it was a really tough catch.
I think if he didn't hit his head, he may have held on.
It was, like I said, I'm not criticizing him, because he had his toes like really like literally right there, at both toes down, and it was a beautiful throw. It came right into his chest, and I think as he was hitting, his head was hitting the ground, he lost control of the football and didn't complete the catch. But it was good defense too by the Cowboys. The Cowboys were right there. That's why he didn't complete the catch. It was just a contested catch on the sideline, and it had to be a perfect throw, which actually it was. Like I said, that was one of the best games I've seen Daniel Jones play. Now it just helps having a number one wide receiver too. Like it makes every quarterback look better. Even Daniel Jones looks competent out there when he's got a number one wide receiver. That's the lesson of that. So I mean, something else we got to get into really quickly, because I know we want to get to some Sark sound. The penalties for the Cowboys, they got to figure this out, because they're dealing with the same issue the Texans dealt with, or the Texans are dealing with, where they have the penalties on early downs, and then it puts them in 3rd and long.
Yep.
And then 3rd and long for an offense. I mean, that's just a hellacious situation to be in, right? Very difficult to convert those types of situations. And that's where the Cowboys ended up. They ended up in a lot 3rd and long. I think they were 3 of 10 on 3rd down. And that's because they ended up in 3rd and long because of a lot of the early down penalties in the game for the Cowboys. They got to figure it out. 11 of them in this game.
Tyler Guyton he's a rookie, but he's not doing terrible, but he got some penalties just because he was getting beat. He was getting beat a lot.
And I'll say this sound. He trashed the refs too after the game, and it went viral. It's probably not good. He said basically the NFL needs to hire new refs. Something like that. I know. I was like, no.
What, 4 games into his NFL career?
Yeah, and he's already complaining about the refs. Like, and like, I don't know if you can do that. I don't even know if they can. I know they get coach. I know they find coaches for that. I don't know if they find players for that. I'm not sure.
Now, you're not Al Michaels.
So say the NBA does that though, right? The NBA talking.
Yeah.
I don't know if the NFL does it. Maybe they do. We'll see. Actually, we come back. We'll get into some Texas football conversation. Go behind the Burn Noise curtain. Hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about their upcoming opponent. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Local and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. We're going to talk about, we're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian and talk a little bit about their upcoming opponent, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who actually lost their starting quarterback, Blake Shapen, for the season. So they're going to be starting a freshman, a redshirt freshman, Mike Van Buren, I believe, is expected to start for them. So we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about preparing for a team when you're really not sure the quarterback is and you don't really have film on that quarterback. But first, this is an interesting nugget from Sark, because I actually am interested to hear him talk about, what finding things for this team to work on. I mean, you're the number one team in the country. It's even hard to find points to critique on this team because they're really good, right? That's one thing that we do on this show, find things to critique about the team. And trust me, it's as tough as it's ever been to critique this team. Usually it's really easy. Usually I got pages of notes and binders full of stuff. It's like, oh man, I don't know if I got enough time to get into all the different items and the points of criticism that I have to get to about the team. But that's not the case. This year's team is really, really good. And here's Sark when he's asked about, how do you, as a coach, what are you finding things to work on? Like, how are you finding things to work on as a coach? Here is Sark with the media yesterday.
I wouldn't know if I've ever not gotten mad about stuff. But you probably have to ask the coaches and the players that. There's always stuff. There's a million things that I want to get better at and get right. And, even a lot of times, the result of the play is a touchdown, but I see the left guard getting beat, or I see the other receiver run the wrong route, or I see the running back not pick up the protection, and everybody else is cheering. And I'm kind of still upset that we didn't do something correctly on the play. So I don't ever have a problem of finding areas for us to improve upon. It's just a matter of how much do I exude that type of energy as opposed to celebrating the couple guys that did do it right on the play. So
it's a great coaching attitude right there. I mean, because I remember a coach at Keenan telling us we're searching for the perfect rep. So if it's not a perfect rep, then we always got something to get better at. And how many perfect reps did you have in the game? You might have 8, 9 reps that are considered perfect reps out of the 40, 50 that you're playing. So, all right, until you get 50 perfect reps, we always have something to work on. And that's kind of how it seems like that Starks mentality too. Until I get 11 guys all, doing everything exactly right. 11 guys with a perfect rep. Then we got something to coach up on. It's that simple. And you don't, perfection is tough to it's tough to meet that expectation, almost impossible, even tougher to maintain it. So for Sark, I think that's what his standard is. He talks about the standard being standard. That's the standard. All right, let's hear from Sark talking about the opposing quarterback. Like we said, it could be Mike Van Buren, it could be Chris Parsons, with Blake Shapen out for the season. Both of those guys are inexperienced quarterbacks. Here is Steve Sarkisian talking about how tough it is to prepare for a quarterback without a lot of film on him.
That's the biggest challenge right there. You hit the nail on the head. It's a small sample size. They've had a week now to prepare a game plan for the things that he does well. And that's what we're going to have to kind of sort through and figure out. But knowing Jeff Lebby's a really good offensive mind, that he's going to put him in a good position to have some success. They're going to do the things that he does well. They're going to utilize other aspects of their offense to kind of get some easy completions, the jet sweeps, the different things. I'm sure that we'll see some wildcat to alleviate some of the pressure there as well. So all those things add up to, he's going to be in a good position to perform well. Our job is to try to get him uncomfortable, and we'll see how effective we are.
Yeah, I mean that's an advantage for Mississippi State. They don't have many advantages, if any, in this matchup versus Texas. One of their advantages is Texas does not have any idea of the skill level of their QBs. They just don't know. And honestly, for Texas, I assume that it's going to be aggressive. With a young quarterback, the blueprint is usually, the default is, make a young quarterback have to process quickly and put a lot on their shoulders. I mean, try to confuse them pre-snap, post-snap, try to, apply pressure as much as you can to a young quarterback and force them into making some mistakes. How mature is your young quarterback? You're going to learn it early. So you got a freshman and Michael Van Buren, and you got a redshirt freshman in Chris Parsons. And the career stats for both of these guys, I mean, you talk about 28 pass attempts for Parsons, 13 for Vernon. So they're going to be on the road for their first, whoever's first start's going to be on the road for them, and going up against the number one defense in the country statistically in a lot of areas, or definitely a top 10, top 5 defense. I imagine Johnny Nansen and PK, they could play it just really conservatively and just say, hey, let's force this young guy to beat us and make plays. I think, I don't know, based on the what I'm watching, what I've observed, and the style of this defense, I think they're going to be aggressive versus these young bucks and force the young buck into making some mistakes. I think that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, Chris Parsons started one game last year. He
did start. Okay,
he was 5 for 12 for 36 yards and ran the ball 5 times for 11 yards. So not great against A&M last season.
All right, so you got one start under the belt. That could have been, so that's a big game for him. So there's some experience there, but it's still, that could be an advantage for him. If you want to talk about the uncertainty and the mystery of them, there's not a lot of film on them prepared, but I don't know what the improvement has been from that first start to what they're going to see, or even how much either one of these guys are going to start, or both start, how much these guys are going to play, and which one of these guys are going to start. Right now, the belief is that Van Buren is going to start.
Yeah, he was the one who came in for shaping last game. So.
Okay. So we shall see, but either way, it's going to be a tough task for whoever ends up getting that starting job versus Texas. Another tough job right now is trying to keep the running backs healthy. We just saw the latest availability report, and it does look like, Trey Wisner has been upgraded to probable, that's a good sign, but you're going to have Velton Gardner's going to be out. We already know Christian Clark and CJ Baxter been out all season. And I believe Colin Page is still questionable on that latest injury report. So the running back position.
So he moved did he move up from doubtful to?
Is he doubtful?
I didn't see him.
So is he still? No, he might be doubtful. I apologize. He may be doubtful. Actually. But the Trey Wisner being moved up to probable is actually a really good sign. And Jared Gibson and Jaden Blue, neither one of those guys were on that report. So it looks like those will be your top 3 backs. Ryan Niblett, you can throw in the mix there too. But here is start talking about Coach Choice and the running backs, because this is probably as tough a job as Coach Choice has ever had, considering all the injuries you've had in that room so far this season. Here to start talking about the running back position.
But I think Coach Choice has done a fantastic job. He's an excellent coach. Coach Choice definitely has a worker's mentality, almost an overachiever's mentality. There's a mindset to his approach of which you attack every day. And I think that our guys really respond to that. And there's a real connectivity in that running back room that I think pushes one another to perform and to perform even better. And so, hey, we're not a finished product with some of those guys. They're all evolving. They all continue to improve. But I love the growth I've seen out of all of them, from Jaden Blue all the way down. I mean, these guys are all continuing to get better.
All right. My apologies. Colin Page is out too. On the latest availability report, he's out, and Velton Gardner are out. So we've got 5 running backs. 4 running backs: CJ Baxter, Christian Clark, Velton Gardner, and Colin Page. They're out. There's another 5th running back that is listed, but Trey Wisner has been upgraded from questionable to probable for the game.
And we see Derek Williams is now listed as out as well.
Yes, that is, and now listed on here is DeAndre Morris questionable. Quinn Ewers, of course, we just talked about him. Of course, he's still questionable. And Jelani McDonald's been upgraded to probable. The safety of the DB as well. And then for some reason, Baron Sorrell ended up on this report, but he's probable for the latest availability report. So that's for Texas. There's some good news there at the running back position. Some good news at DB too, which you still have guys like Derek Williams who's dealing with the hamstring injury, and I think that's the issue. But the Trey Wisner hamstring injury, that right now must be improving, and that's a good sign for him that he's available. Something tells me he might not play though if you don't need him, and it's a hamstring injury. He's just available in case. He may be your emergency back now with Blue, Gibson, in case because something happens to one of those guys, because Gibson got nicked up in the ULM game, and then you'll have Ryan Niblett. That's how I would play it, especially if Wisner's dealing with a hamstring injury, which that has been the report. Just have him be your emergency back, and you can go, and because Niblett needs some work too, by the way, in case you're going to continue to deal with this injury situation and the depth issues at running back. Niblett needs some work. So I would use this game to get Niblett a little bit of work behind Blue and Gibson. And I'd probably keep Trey Wisner dressed, but on the sideline. That's kind of how I'd play it if I was Sark. Yeah. So it's man, I said it's unfortunate that I don't know what Velton Gardner was kind of brought in to be the emergency back. Remember, he played. What game was that?
I think it was the first game of the season, right?
Was it Colorado State that he played?
Yeah.
He actually played in a game, remember? And then
he played right when he got here, like super fast.
As soon as he got here.
I guess he's been injured since.
And he came here just to you know what? Maybe I'll get a chance to play at Texas. And this would have been his chance. And then can't stay out there. I feel bad for Colin Page too, because he just had his best game. It was a walk-on running back for Texas in that ULM game, and then he ends up being nicked up to the point where he's out for the Mississippi State game. And the truth is, if Texas would have got up big enough, both of those guys would have probably gotten some reps. All right, there you go. So that's the latest from Sark, and also the latest from the Texas availability report. We come back, we'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day and your musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Local and Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back here on the Rodcast on a Friday morning, and that means it's a 5-1-2 Friday playing local music. You can go check out live around town this weekend. We'll be playing songs today from a special show happening Sunday at Radio East. It'll be a fun show. Lots of really good, talented artists on it, but it is all benefiting some families in the Alzheimer's Association. Some of the musical family here in town has some members of their family dealing with Alzheimer's. And so the group got together to raise some money for those affected by it and be getting the whole musical family together. This is the Reverend Few. They're going to be playing part of it, but it's a really good lineup. We'll be playing music from it all show long. Sunday at Radio East. It's good. The Cowboys have already played on a Thursday night. The Texans play at noon. So your Texas teams will be done early, so you can go out and check out some live music. And it's an all ages show too. So if anybody wants to come out, they can come out and check out the show on Sunday at Radio East. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open 512-447-3776. And we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. We kept asking you how many points Texas would score. I thought we'd switch it up because the defense needs a little love too. So we'll ask you, how many points will Texas allow against Mississippi State in this game? How many points will they allow? The most they've allowed so far this season is 12 to Michigan. So this defense has been pretty stingy. You're not expecting a lot out of Mississippi State. I'll give you what I put up on the poll. We'll pull it up on the poll. 0, say a shutout. 1-7, 8-13, and 14+.
I'm gonna go. They're gonna get like 2 or 3 field goals. I don't think they're gonna get in the end zone though.
Okay, so
I think Texas will get really stingy in the red zone. First of all, it's gonna be tough for them to move the football down there. But that offense alone, just the way it's manufactured and engineered, if you will, the way it's engineered, it manufactures some explosive plays because of all the stress that it'll put on the defense. So maybe they'll get a couple of explosive plays that may give them, favorable field position. I don't know if they get in the end zone though. Not with these I haven't seen these quarterbacks play, so I don't know if they can even get down the field.
If you just look at their stats, the stats of Parson, he has not thrown for 100 yards. In double-digit pass attempts in 2 games, which would make you believe that there's no explosive plays in that. If you complete 6 passes for 67 yards, that's really not an explosive play. If you complete, 5 passes for 37 yards, definitely not an explosive play in that one. So those are the ones that you're not as worried about. Van Buren, I don't think had any big plays last week either when he came in relief. So I don't think we've seen either one of them be able to do it. Now, maybe you get the week to put it together. Jeff Lebby knows something about this Texas defense, and he's able to get him out there. It's just going to be hard. You also, we haven't talked a lot about it, but this is a up-tempo offense.
It is.
And now you're talking about running an up-tempo offense with a quarterback who isn't really going to have the experience, which seems a little bit more difficult.
I think they may curtail some of their up-tempo tendencies just a little bit to try to control the ball, so just give it right back to Texas.
That's what I'm saying is I don't think
70 points on these dudes.
Yeah, if you go out there and you put up, you go out and throw the ball 3 times in a row and you get 2 yards, and so you run the clock for 25 seconds, and then you punt the ball back.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
Yep.
And your defense, you're just like, we're just going to destroy our defense. Because their
defense is already pretty bad. Like, you can't. Their defense is so bad you can't expose your defense. That'd be bad coaching by Jeff Lebby to expose his defense that much to this prolific offense.
Yeah,
because their defense is 113th in scoring defense, 109th in total defense. I think they're 111th in points per play allowed. They're 105th in yards per play allowed. Third down defense, 112th. You get it. They're not good. And if you have them on the field too much with that Texas offense, I don't care who the starting quarterback is. They're gonna eat them alive.
Yeah,
they'll eviscerate that defense.
So
and they may. So I don't know if they'll go speed tempo the entire time. They may go tempo. They may vary different times, and sometimes they'll go tempo if they got a little momentum. But I expect them to slow it down probably more than
and we also know it's like tempo doesn't necessarily mean you snap the ball quickly, so you can still get to the line quickly. But you have, again, a quarterback who's going to have a week of practice with this O-line, and you're going to be in a opposing stadium. If you want to get false starts, this seems like the best way to get false starts is to try and get a line up to a line early in an opposing stadium that holds 100,000 people, and then get them to stand there for 15 seconds, 20 seconds while the quarterback is trying to get the team to jump off sides or make reads that he doesn't know how to make because he's just starting out. And like all of those pieces of it does seem like it's going to be, it doesn't necessarily flow into an offense where you can just stick a guy into it week one in this setting and have a great deal of success. So that's what we're asking. How many points will Texas allow? If you think that this is going to be just two quarterbacks play, they try and figure out whatever they can. Texas kind of puts their earbacks at points and just goes to make his life a living hell.
Oh, yeah. I'm going, man. I want to go 9 points, but I'm saying 9 field goals. I don't know how good the field goal kicker is. So I'll go.
Well, and at what point?
I'll give up 2 field goals. I'll go 2 field goals.
So I think 2 field goals,
6
too,
points.
is like you say one's at the end of the half. Because a lot of times, if you're down 45 points, you ain't kicking
field
turnover.
Goal.
Yeah, and you're not necessarily kicking field goals.
Yeah, could be a turnover there or some the big play on special teams. Who knows?
Yeah,
I think they get 2 field goals.
2 field goals. So you'll go 1 to 7.
Points. I'm going 1 to 7.
Right.
They haven't. They've only given up 22 points all season. I know it sounds like an arrogant conversation to have, but they only allowed 22 points. And Mississippi State is not good. And they're starting they lost their starting quarterback.
If Blake Shapen's there, I'd probably give him.
If Blake Shapen's there, I'd probably go 10 points.
I go 8 to 13. I go 8 to 13 if Blake Shapen's there. He's not. So that's why you say I just don't know what you can do. And maybe this guy comes out and surprises everybody, whoever comes and plays quarterback. But this defense has looked really good.
Really good. I guess I feel silly predicting this, but I'm gonna go 6 points. So I'm basically say they're gonna give up 28 points in the first 5 games, which is absurd. But it's absurd to give up 22 in the first 4. That's how good they've been.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's a good question, and especially with the quarterback situation happening for Mississippi State. I don't know which one those quarterbacks are going to be shaking in their boots, and I think Texas defense is going to be aggressive too. I don't think they're going to be passive versus these young QBs. Anytime there's a young QB in there, you blitz them, you show them crazy
Go for it.
looks. Yeah, exactly. Why would you want them to have to process quickly and force them into making mistakes? I also think you're gonna. What you've gotten 2 at the most turnovers you've got in the game this year is 2. You might get 3 in this game. If they still want to throw it, you might get 3 turnovers in this game. You might get a strip sack. You might get a couple of interceptions.
Yeah, again, especially we say if they try and go up tempo and call a play, and I know there's headset communication, so Levy can technically talk him through some of this stuff now, but you're still getting a guy to come up to the line and try and make adjustments and everything on really a week of practice.
In an opposing stadium on the road.
Wait, the crowds have been insane so far this year.
Oh, they're gonna be rabid out there. Longhorn fans are gonna be the SEC opener. Oh, man, they're gonna be excited for this one. And they've allowed 13 sacks, by the way, so far this year. So the O-line wasn't good, even with Blake Shapen. They've allowed 13 sacks so far this year. And Texas, I think this is a game where they can get 3 sacks.
Yeah.
Remember that? Matter of fact, they've allowed the same sacks as UTSA. How many sacks did Texas get versus UTSA? 3. There you go. And I think the line basically implies that UTSA may be a better team than Mississippi State. Because the line right now is what, 37, you said?
37 and a half.
37 and a half? I don't remember what the line was for the UTSA game. I think maybe close to that, somewhere around there. Actually.
Yeah, I think it was around that, maybe a little less.
It was around there, a little less, yeah. All right, we come back. There you go. That's the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. How many points will the Texas defense allow versus Mississippi State? All right, we'll come back. We'll get into the Texans and their matchup versus the Jaguars. We'll dive into that and some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. The big game of the weekend in college football, Georgia versus Alabama. We'll get into that because the winner of that game may actually leapfrog Texas if they look good enough. We'll get into it and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! Football 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. And thanks to my man Patrick, that 512 Friday means we're playing jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is the legendary Patrice Pike. Been playing here in town from Sister Seven and Little Sister and Pike and Sutton and all these great bands. She'll be playing part of that benefit show Sunday at Radio East, benefiting the Alzheimer's Association, some of the families of musicians here in towns dealing with family members suffering from Alzheimer's.
Oh man, good cause there, and appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And I thank you for all your efforts for 512 Friday as well. Also, Patrick comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Patrick, what is the topic today for the big fat poll?
Big fat poll of the day today: how many points will Texas allow against Mississippi State?
Yeah, I'm right now. I said I'm at 6. I could see 9. I could see you gave a range there.
That's why I try and make it a little bit more difficult because I thought 9's in there. So we go 0, shutout, 1 to 7, 8 to 13, and 14 plus. Because I don't know, 14 plus seems small, seems a little arrogant to put the highest one at 14 plus, but they have not allowed 14 points this season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree. I think that's if they allow 14 points in this game or more, people would be shocked. Longhorn fans would be shocked just because because of the way the team is played, they're just not accustomed to it. So yeah, it's going to be a shock anyway when they see a prolific offense because Texas just hasn't seen one, and we still don't know how good the defense is. We know they're really good. We know they're much improved, but we don't know how good they are, and I'm not sure if we will get that barometer. I'm not sure we get that test in the regular season. Georgia's not that kind of offense.
Not yet. And that's, I think, watch this Alabama Georgia game. If they're able to put up, 25, 30 points on Alabama, then all of a sudden that kind of changes your mindset of
because Alabama's pass defense is legit.
Really so if they're able to put up some points against Alabama, then you worry about it a little bit more. But they won that Kentucky game 13-12. And so that's one that you kind of look at and say, well, I mean, they win and the defense looks good, but that offense is still not necessarily there. They haven't been able to replace Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey.
Bowers and McConkey, they miss them. You can tell.
Yeah, and it's just Carson Beck's had such a good.
And they've had a lot of guys suspended, by the way. Don't forget all the issues they've had, the Fast and the Furious sequels that they're trying to recreate there on the campus. So they've had a lot of guys just suspended. So the depth, honestly, it's crazy. The depth that they've once had, it's not as formidable. And the disparity is not as wide because they just had a lot of guys suspended. You can tell there are cracks now starting to be seen in the Georgia dynasty. And toward the end of dynasties, you start seeing the cracks in the basically in the foundation a little bit. And I'm not saying they're at the end of it, but when they've been on top for a while, I always talk about how you can start seeing the cracks because everybody's been staring at them for so long. That's what you're starting to see with Georgia. And it is affecting the on-field product just a little bit because they don't have the depth they once did because guys getting dismissed and the guys getting suspended and stuff like that. So
no, and I mean, and this is the thing Texas will deal with at some point, not at the same extent, but there's something to be said. So. But there's also a point of in the NIL world, you can pay a lot of money, but at some point, certain donors are going to pull back a little bit on that money instead of saying, well, you get $1 million every year. You go, okay, we've won over this and that. It's like when you see teams like Alabama and Georgia now that they would have road games and they wouldn't have a huge contingent on road games because their fan base was just depleted from years and years of going to conference championships and bowl games and playoff games.
They're so spoiled now.
They're so spoiled that they're like, oh, we're playing Texas.
I'll save my trip for the college football playoff.
I'm not gonna. I can't go on 5 road trips this year, so we'll only go on 1 during the regular season, and the rest will be in the postseason. And so there is a bit of it where it's just if you're good for a decade, eventually certain people just kind of fall off a little bit, and it goes down. So you can still get your star players. You still have enough money to get all of that, but maybe your depth is a little bit less. Maybe you're not necessarily getting where you're able to get, 4 or 5 stars at every position.
Yeah, no, and you lose assistants, right? You lose coaches. Exactly. That happens too. It's a natural deterioration. You're not going to be able to stay on top for that long. And I think Georgia's dealing with a little bit of that. But that big game, that is to me, that's going to be a test like for both Georgia and obviously it's a test. But I think in terms of the path, both of them are going down now. Yeah. Are we talking about Alabama continuing to be what they were under Nick Saban? Because Kalen DeBoer is an underrated coach, man. That guy is a top 5 coach in college football right now. I mean, he's out coached Sark twice. That ain't easy to do. Sark's at the top of his game right now as a coach, and he hasn't been able to win the chess match against Kalen DeBoer, who's a hell of a coach. So that dude he wins right away. Like there's no crescendo, there's no build up. When he gets somewhere, they win right now. And right now at Bama, this will be the test if he's gonna continue his trend as a coach of being able to win right away wherever he goes, and if Bama can just continue their winning ways with the foundation. Was it so strong that Nick Saban built that? No, there will be no rebuild. There will be no disruption or regression.
Yeah,
this is just what Bama is now. And they got the right coach. This will be the test for that.
No, and I mean, but the reality is too, we saw the same thing with Georgia. We saw cracks with Alabama a couple years ago.
Oh yeah.
And so they're still there. You can still be great and have some cracks. There's still great teams. No doubt. But we saw that a couple years ago, and you just saw, okay, they're starting to lose some games now that they didn't lose 5 or 5 years ago. They're just losing
closer than they used to be.
They're closer than they used to be. They're not quite as unbelievably as dominant as they were.
Yep. And you see that with Georgia. Like the Kentucky, you're like, man, surprised Kentucky played with Georgia. Yeah, because at this point, even the players, there's a little bit of that fatigue. It's hard to get them ramped up for every game like that. They'll be ready to play for that Bama game, though. Kirby Smart will have them ready.
Yeah, I have a feeling they'll be ready for that game. They'll be ready for Texas. Both those games I feel they'll be pretty ready for.
Yeah, but they actually, speaking of fatigue, they just may be worn out by the end of the season too, because they got that schedule for Georgia they haven't had a schedule like this in a while. They get all the tough games for some reason. And that's not the way the SEC lined it up. Nobody knew who was going to be struggling. Nobody knew Oklahoma was going to be down like they are. But right now that they got to play Bama. They got to play Texas, of course. I think they got to play Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they play all the big dogs, all the teams that are doing really well right now in the SEC. They got to play them on their schedule. All right. Before we get into some Texans talk, because I want to talk about the Texans and their upcoming game versus Jacksonville, they got to get back on the winning track after getting just mollywopped by the Minnesota Vikings. That was a shameful performance by the Texans. We'll talk about how they can bounce back and what challenges are going to be presented by the Jacksonville Jaguars for the Texans. We'll get into that. We'll also get into Raj Rant. Probably going to get back to some Texas football conversation to Raj Rant. And we can preview that Georgia-Bama game a little bit. I'll give you some my insight on that game, some of the research I've done. But first, let's get educated. Let's get updated. Let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros head to Cleveland tonight to begin the final series of the regular season with the Guardians. The Astros are locked in at the 3 seed, so may rest some players through the series, while the Guardians are still competing with the Yankees for the number 1 overall seed in the AL. Roniel Blanco is scheduled to get the start tonight for Houston. The Rangers lost to Oakland last night 3-2 in the final game of the Oakland Coliseum. Kumar Rocker pitched 4 2/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, and the Oakland crowd of 46,889 stayed for the final pitch as Janikowski grounded out to third. The Rangers take on the Angels this weekend to finish off their season, with Jacob deGrom scheduled to take the mound tonight. In the NFL, the Cowboys held on to beat the Giants 20-15 on Thursday Night Football. The Dallas defense held the Giants to 26 yards rushing with no touchdowns, but lost some key players with Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons all leaving the game with injuries. The Texans take on the winless Jaguars in an AFC South battle on Sunday as Houston hopes to rebound from a tough loss to Minnesota last week. And in college football, number 7 Miami will take on Virginia Tech tonight as Cam Ward continues his campaign for the Heisman. While on Saturday, number 20 Oklahoma State plays their second top 25 matchup in a row, facing number 23 Kansas State. Number 16 Notre Dame gets a test with number 15 Louisville, and a huge SEC matchup of number 2 Georgia trying to take out number 4 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Coach Sark said yesterday that he will name the starting quarterback for Saturday today as Texas will take on Mississippi State at 3:15 to begin their SEC schedule. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. We did talk about and played the audio from Sark earlier in the show, discussing the announcement, if you will, about who the starting quarterback will be for that Mississippi State game. I think it's going to be Arch. I think at this point, if he still is unsure and uncertain at 24 hours before the game, I think ultimately they will decide, hey, let's go with Arch. Let's be cautious about this thing. If we're uncertain at this point, let's not risk it. Because Mississippi State isn't worth it. If it was Georgia, if it was Oklahoma, let's go. It's it's go time. It's not. It's Mississippi State, so it's actually not only about Quinn and his progress, about Arch and his development, but also it's about the opponent. Let's be honest here too. I mean, you just don't necessarily need him to beat Mississippi State. They don't pose that much of a threat. So that's just my belief, but it has not been confirmed, and Sark will confirm who the starting quarterback is going to be later today. I don't even know if we know a time on that. I have no idea.
I mean, I'm assuming after practice.
Yeah, he's going to announce it after practice.
Sometime. Yeah, it's he's saying not going to be a game time decision, but a day before.
Yeah, he said not going to. He said basically says he's not playing games. But here's the quote. It will. Hear from Sark a little bit later on because we're going to go behind the burn-ons curtain and actually hear from that, play some of that audio from that media availability. But when he was asked about the quarterback situation, he said, basically he's not playing games. This is not gamesmanship. He just wants to give Quinn as much time to, be as healthy as possible when they evaluate him and talk about, at least determine how healthy he is and can he be available and can he start that Mississippi State game. So that's what Sark says. We'll hear from Sark a little bit later on in the show, and we'll talk about their upcoming opponent, Mississippi State. But let's get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. We'll also get into the Cowboys. We talked about it earlier in the show, their big win over the Giants last night, and the improvement that we saw from that defense for the Cowboys also was a big headline. And I think they held the Giants to just 26 rushing yards, the best rushing individual single game rushing defense performance by any defense in the NFL this year. So that is improvement. It's the Giants, but still improvement about the Cowboys. Let's talk about the Texans a little bit because they got a game coming up and they got to have a bounce back too after having a disastrous showing versus the Minnesota Vikings. The Texans need to bounce back and they need to improve in some key areas. In my opinion, for them, not only I think they can beat the Jags and they can do it with an ugly game, but if they want to continue to improve so that they are a contender in the AFC, somebody championship contender, a few things they got to work on. Number one, they got to stay out of the third and longs. The third and longs killed them versus the Minnesota Vikings, and I fear this is becoming a trend for the season. Here, how about this stat for the Texans? Through 3 weeks. Basically, the Texans have the second most. CJ Stroud has the second most dropbacks on third and long. Not good. Third and long, by the way. 3rd and 7+ yards to go. That is considered third and long. They have the second most dropbacks on 3rd and 7+ yards to go. It's a huge reason why the Texans 20th right now in third down conversions in the NFL. 20th. And in that game versus Minnesota, I mean, that was the game in a nutshell. They had 14 third downs. 13 of them were third and longs. They faced 3rd and 10+ more than any team in any game since 2022. That's how often they were in third and really, really long in that game versus Minnesota. Disastrous performance. They averaged, I think they had a total of 5 net yards on second down. Like, it's just a really bad overall performance by them. And the early down penalties, which we'll get into a little bit later, that also led to more of these third and longs. The Texans are averaging, how about this, 4.5 yards per play on first and second downs. That's 30th in the NFL. It's not good. So they're inefficient, ineffective, and inept. And undisciplined on the early downs, and that often leads to them into third and really long and third and long situations. They got to stay out of it. The Texans, their average third down distance against Minnesota, 3rd and 12 in the first half. And they came out in the second half, and their first 2 third downs were 3rd and 16 and 3rd and 11. they couldn't figure it out. And like I said, right now they are bottom of not bottom of the NFL. They are below average when it comes to third down conversion. So they're not good at converting third downs anyway. And now they're in the worst possible situation you can be in for an offense in third and long and really long. And they're in that situation as much as any team in the league. They got to fix that. And I'll give CJ Stroud credit. Last year, he had more third and 10-plus yard completions for conversions. He had more than any quarterback in the league. So he still was able to, succeed in those really stressful situations. But you can't put your young quarterback in that situation too many times.
No.
And I think this year it's starting to have an adverse.
No, and a lot of that starts with Laramie Tunsil. Because if you look at his rates, his protection rates, and all of that, he's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And so if you look at what he's doing once the ball is snapped, he's really good. It's that time when they line up before the snap that he has cost his team so many yards.
I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what's happening. And he's got 10. He got 10 penalties so far this year. 10.
And part of the 10 is because of the that new illegal procedure, or the whatever the lineup when they line up too far back. That one that has gotten a lot of left tackles so far this season. That those guys have probably 4 to 5 extra penalties they wouldn't have had because they're putting a real point of emphasis. But that being said, it's a point of emphasis. It's a thing. Change it.
Why do you keep being called for it?
Yeah. Fix it by this point, right? We're in week 5 now, or week 4 now. You should know that this is not going away. This is still a problem. So fix that, and then if all starts and everything, because you need to be the one to hold the rest of the O-line accountable.
But you can't do now.
Because you're the worst offender.
You're the main violator. You're the main violator. No, I don't know. They had 8. I think of those penalties versus the Vikings, which is way too many. And you're right. That was a big reason why. Another big reason why they were in third and long. So they got to figure that out. And D'Amico claims that they got it fixed, or at least they've been addressed. That it's been addressed.
Yeah, but I mean, again,
penalties on
we understand that's not a 1 week fix it thing.
No,
it needs to be a 1 week it gets better thing. But you can't just change, the entire thought process and how everybody's working on your offensive line in 1 week. Just, hey, stop doing that. Okay, we will. And then it's fixed. It's not like they didn't know it was a problem before. So you have to be able to figure that out, because they got these penalties at home too. Like, I get last week you're on the road and you get penalties, but they got these penalties at home as well. They were getting bad penalties. So you have to be able to fix that kind of play. And then the reality of getting out of third down is we look at that injury report, and Damian Pierce and Joe Mixon are still listed as questionable on that report. You got to figure out something in the running game as well. Somehow how to manufacture something if those guys aren't going to be there, because you can't not be able to run the ball at all and try not to get in long third down. It's like those two don't go together. Yeah. The whole way you stay out of third and longs is running the football effectively.
Having success on those early downs. Yes. Yeah, and the run game will help you do that. Now, I'm with you. I don't like I said, I don't know what they did to address, but we'll play the audio later on. D'Amico Ryan said that, yes, they have addressed the pre-snap penalties, but they got to figure out something. Because remember last year we gave the stat that they're the most penalized team on the road last year, and a lot of them were O-line penalties, and we all assumed because they're the most injury-riddled O-line in football. They're playing a lot of backups, third-string guys. Of course they got penalties. These guys don't play together a lot. Now you have all the starters there. They're relatively healthy on the O-line, still got the penalties. So that's a systemic issue that D'Amico Ryan's got to figure out. Okay, so that's number one. Stay out of third and longs, and to do that, O-line's got to be a lot more disciplined. As it relates to those penalties that we just brought up. You can't have 8 violations before the snap, 8 penalties before the snap like you did versus Minnesota. Another thing to keep in mind, speaking of the O-line, they have to, because I don't know if this is more of a CJ Stroud issue or a Texans O-line issue, but teams are stunting And stunting is like it basically twists games they play up front where you do twists and stunts up front. So you're asking D linemen, all right, to intersect and to cross to try to confuse blocking schemes. That's basically all the twist stunts in games are up front. And you can do them in a lot of different ways. You can use linebackers from a second level to do it. You can, use just the D lineman up front, whatever. Right? You can be really, really creative in your package. And by the way, they played really creative defensive coordinators, including Brian Flores, who might be the most creative defensive mind right now. But Houston hadn't been picking up stunts really well early this season. And CJ Stroud has right now the second highest sack rate in the NFL against stunts on passing plays. 22.6% sack rate when teams are stunting against them. And this was a problem versus Indy. This was a problem versus Chicago, and now problem versus Minnesota. So now we've seen it as a trend in multiple games. And Jacksonville has they got some decent pass rushers. Josh Allen, who calls himself Joshua Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker, Arik Armstead. Those are guys you can play a lot of games with up front, a lot of twists and stunt up front. And if they've been watching the film, which they have, they're going to recognize that CJ Stroud has trouble, or Leo Line has trouble blocking stunts, twists, and games. And that CJ Stroud, who we're still not sure, maybe he's setting the protection. And if he is setting the protection, then maybe the protections they're setting are unable to recognize pre-snap that a team is about to deploy or execute twists and stunts. Last season, you go look at it. He had the second lowest. You go look at the stunt sack rate is basically what they call it. He has the second highest this season. The second highest stunt sack rate, 22.6%. He had the second lowest last year, 4.7%. So belief is that maybe it's the O-line, but the O-line's improved. Last year, you had the most injured O-line in the NFL in the last 20 years. 20 plus years, actually, since they started keeping track of it. And yet CJ Stroud was better at, stunt sack rate. And now you have a healthy O-line. You got a lot of penalties, undisciplined healthy O-line. And now you guys are struggling to pick up twists and stunts in games up front. I don't know what it is. They got to figure it out.
Yeah.
If they don't, every team's going to throw those at you.
Yeah, because I think you're right on that. Because, again, it seems like C.J. Stroud's kind of running everything. They've had the injuries at center some, too, where Juice Scruggs has been hurt a little bit, and then Patterson came in, and he got hurt. And center is going to be one of those positions that you normally try to have kind of be a focal point of being able to read those and set protections, too. It just feels like when you watch those games that they're just missing it. It's not that they're missing the block and they can't get the block and the guy's getting past him. They're just not even blocking.
Don't you see him?
Yeah, they just are. Yeah, they all grab. They'll double team a guy and let a guy run right past him. Yeah. And those kind of plays are what will drive you crazy because you think this is clearly not how it's supposed to work. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. So somewhere in that, somebody didn't call the right thing, and the O-line is just going off of what they're supposed to be doing as opposed to making reads in the moment, reacting and seeing a guy come out and trying to at least put a hand on somebody and get him. So as they keep watching film, CJ Stroud, again, a young quarterback, he'll have to keep trying to get better at it. But these are the things in practice you just need to try and keep throwing different stuff at him and let him see it in practice a little bit more, so maybe he can read those a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you're right about him setting the protections. And I'm not sure how much you can identify about a team, about to execute a twist or a stunt or run games based on the pre-snap, or if that's something like you said, it's got to be all in the line and say, yeah, this protection is set, but you guys have to react to a player going away. And that's football, period. Somebody goes, it's probably all sports, honestly, probably basketball too. Guy goes away from you, you always expect something coming back to you. Like that's it's you always if a guy's going away, if automatically there's a void, all right, and you are not facing, you no longer have a one-on-one you're facing, you should be looking. You should expand your eyesight or your line of sight, expand it and look for something coming back to you. And DBs is always like, oh, the receiver went away from me on the route. there's another receiver coming right back my way. I just got to find him. He may be on the second level, maybe on the third level.
Yeah.
And that's when, remember, the Jay Barron gets that interception where he robs the post. That's essentially what he's doing. He's like, my guy's away. I got to find work. Keep finding work. Look for work. Look for work. Look for work. And when you look for work, you'll find it. And they're not looking for work. That should be kind of a natural response to someone, whoever your one-on-one is that you're taking on, whether you're blocking or defending them. If they go away, look for work coming back to you. And that's all the twisting and stun is. One guy's going to twist away from you. There's going to be another guy stunned right back at you. And right now, they're not recognizing that. And that's, like I said, it seems like that's a natural athletic reaction, or that's kind of a basic football fundamentals. It should be like, hey, guy away, guy coming back. It's very rare they're both away and then nobody, you have no work and no responsibility.
Yeah, if you push a guy and then you win that battle real easy, probably
something's up.
Something's up.
Yeah,
should be like, got him good. Oh, CJ's running.
they tell D lineman that for screens.
Yeah,
they say when you win too easily, dude, you're not that good. He's letting you through. You're like, I'm dominant. Look at my swim move, and it's like, no, rethink it. Have you beaten him that easily all game? Not really. Oh, something's going on here. Then expand your eyesight, and you'll see the running back probably sneaking out in the backfield. The quarterback, obviously dropping back, but is somewhat reluctant to drop back and look downfield because he's dumping it off on the screen. And so that's, I don't know. I mean, that should be like I said, natural instinct for those guys, but obviously they need to be coached up on it. Okay. That's about it. There are a couple other items I want to get to for the Texans. We can hit those again later, but I think those are your main factors in them bouncing back successfully. They got to be better. They got to get more manageable third downs. That means being better on second down, and the pre-snap penalties they're having on the offensive line. They got to fix that, specifically Laramie Tunsil. And then I think also they got to learn how to pick up those twists and stunts on the offensive line. That's becoming an issue. That's why the pressure rate is really high. And for CJ Stroud, I don't know if it's him setting the protection or the O-line struggling to pick it up, but they got to figure it out. All the Jags might be able to, I'm going to say they're going to pull the upset, but they may be able to make it really close, a little too close for comfort. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant on the other side. Talk a little Texas football. How's the game going to look for Arch Manning if he does indeed get the start? We'll discuss it on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Life Young Local. Rod Baby's coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. We don't know who's going to start the game at quarterback for Texas. If Quinn starts, I think the conundrum for Sark is going to be how to thread the needle with all the injuries you have at running back, with you having now you know with 5 running backs basically on the availability report. Trey Wisner is going to be probable, but you got 4 running backs that are out. 2 of them been out for the season, so your depth has been challenged at the running back position. You got Jaden Blue, who's missed a game already with injury. You got Jared Gibson, who's been nicked up a couple of times in games already so far this season. Trey Wisner's already missed time for you. I guess the only guy at running back who hasn't either missed time or been nicked up in the game is Ryan Niblett right now. So the truth,
that's because he has just started 6 carries, 5, 6 carries.
Exactly. And you're just about to start SEC play, guys. We're just 4 games into this thing. So the running back position, it's I don't foresee it throughout the year, this resolving, because I just think now you started out with so many guys hurt. It's gonna be tough. I don't know if you get a stretch really to get guys healthy. This is the stretch right now, right? This is the stretch right now where you get, you had ULM and then you get Mississippi State and then you get the bye week. I think this is the stretch trying to get the running backs as healthy as possible, and that is the hope. But all season long, I've been talking about how you got to give this offense to Quinn, and it's going to be a passing first offense. And I said that from the jump after, even the CJ Baxter injury, I was like, no, you're going to be a pass first offense anyway. And I think that has come to fruition. But with Quinn, that's a more obvious path, right? It's a more obvious solution to the identity of what the offense is going to be. And all the passing rates reflect that early in the game. I mean, Quinn was hovering around 70% pass rate when he got hurt and went down in that UTSA game. So if Quinn comes back in the game, I guess the question would be, do you just pick up where you left off? Or with your quarterback coming off an injury, do you curtail that somewhat? Do you modify that somewhat and put more of the burden on your running backs? I think Sark is going to try to thread the needle because, by the way, Mississippi State's run defense is terrible. Like, it's really bad. There are only 10 teams in college football with a worse rush defense than Mississippi State. So maybe the plan was when he got Jaden Blue the 25 rushes and the 7 targets versus ULM, hey, I know versus Mississippi State, we may have to have a workhorse, and he's going to be it potentially. We're looking at all the injuries at running back. We don't know. Just trying to psychoanalyze Sark. But I do think you could supplement the running game because I think with all the injuries at running back, it's going to affect how you manage the game. How can it not? Right? It's going to affect how you manage the game. There's no question about it. And when guys get nicked up in the game, it's going to affect how you manage the game at running back. So I think you got to start with more elements and concepts that are going to help you be additive to the running game and supplement it somehow. I think your wide receiver run game needs to increase. You've got 3 wide receiver carries on the year. This is not including Ryan Niblett because he's doing both. All right. And one's for 55 yards, one's for 25 yards, and one you lost 8 yards on. It's pretty good so far. I would try to implement more of those. I was recently looking at the stats for Marquise Goodwin because he got inducted into the Hall of Honor. Dude had 45 rushes in his career as a wide receiver. 45 of them. I mean, that's a lot as a wide receiver. And I remember him breaking a lot of them too. You guys remember that too. But it's because of his speed, right? World-class speed. Well, Sark recruits world-class speed. I think we need more wide receiver carries. I think you should probably get 1 a game. It ain't always got to be Bond. It ain't always got to be Wingo. I think Wingo and Bond are 2 of your best ball carriers at wide receiver, and Silas Bolden. And you can do it with Niblett too. You can put Niblett out there and do it with him. I think wide receiver carries is something that needs to increase. I'm not saying, do it 5, 6 times a game. I'm saying it needs to at least 1 a game. You need to have at least 1 of those a game because the potential for them is such big. So it won't add to the overall like touches and like production in the running game that way in terms of rushes. But look at your output when you do one of these 55-yarder, 25-yarder. Yeah, you lost 8 yards on one, but to me, it's worth it considering the success rate and the explosive play rate of those plays so far. So that's one thing I would see more of. Sarkis already said he wants to see the screen game increase and be a little bit better. And that this is stuff that I think you'll see or should see if Arch or Quinn are out there. The screen game's got to get better. I think they had 4 screens in that game versus ULM, but I haven't seen the tight end screen much. That's something that Sark likes. I'm surprised I didn't see more of the bubble screen that was successful in scoring versus UTSA with the wide receivers on the outside. That's an extension of the running game. So the screen game, and Sark has one of the more sophisticated, elaborate screen packages in football at the college or the pro level. That's something we should see more of with either Quinn out there or Arch out there, just because we're trying to find ways now to boost the running game where it's just not the traditional running game with just handing off the football. Because I don't know if you want to any of your backs to take on a workhorse role right now in any regard. So you're just trying to find ways to diversify the running game, bring more variety to it. Screen game, wide receiver. I think your wide receiver runs basically. Most of the time, it's just an in and around, but there are other creative ways to do it. I think that's something that should increase for Sark. But mainly the offense, if Arch is a starting quarterback, it'll change a little bit. The modifications of it, we talked about that earlier in the week after the ULM game. He likes going downfield. The number one thing to watch between whether it's Quinn or whether it's Arch is the deep ball. Arch's deep ball rate right now is over 25%. We haven't seen a start quarterback maybe ever have a deep ball rate that high. Definitely since he started, coaching in the NFL. When he started coaching Matt Ryan and it's the offensive coordinator following Kyle Shanahan, we haven't seen a quarterback with a deep ball rate as high as Arch Manning's deep ball rate is. Small sample size, but he's over 25% of his passes are deep passes. Now, Sark wanted to imply that was all matchup specific, but that can't be all matchup specific because I told you guys before we even saw the ULM game, you were going to see increased deep ball rate and frequency with Arch just based on the film study because he likes throwing it deep, or Sark likes putting in deeper concepts or more vertical concepts into the playbook and into the game plan when Arch is there. Remember, he says he lets the quarterbacks pick some of their plays, their favorite plays from the week. Maybe Arch picks a lot of plays with deeper, more vertical shots. I have no idea, but I told you guys it was going to happen before the ULM game, so it can't just be ULM specific. It's not, because I wasn't looking at the safeties from ULM saying that. I was watching the film. I was looking at average depth of target. I was looking at yards per attempt. I was looking at air yards. His air yards are like 40. He's like 46%. I want to say Quinn was like around 26%. If you're looking at air yards, yeah, he's around 42%. Quinn's around 26% in that UTSA game in terms of how many of your yards are coming through the air. He likes going downfield. He does. So that's the number one thing to watch because they got him in a little bit of trouble in that game because he went, I think they had 10 passes of 20 yards or more. He completed 3 of them. And Sark even acknowledged on a couple of those, probably should have checked it down. So that's the growth we want to see. That's the biggest thing to watch. If it's Arch or if it's Quinn, is the change in the amount of deep balls and how selective they are in deep ball targets. Because Arch lets it fly. And if he has 10 deep balls in this game, if Arch starts and has 10 deep balls, we will definitely start making t-shirts. F them check downs, and just a picture of Arch on there, just F that check down, and Jim just about to chunk it deep. We'll probably get sued. Probably be a cease and desist by the Manning family. And we will take that as a compliment. We will take that as a compliment, a badge of honor. All right, but we got to get that out there because that would mean that he is like, I ain't not to hell with your check down. That'd be after Sark told the media he's gonna take more check downs and said it was a ULM game specific with all the deep shots, and he's still taking deep shots. Then we know F them check downs. That's just the way Arch thinks. All right, we come back. We'll have what the stats on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about my friend and your friend, best dentist in Austin, Dr. Greg Eckert and his team. I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there just for a cleaning and a checkup. As a matter of fact, I need to reach out to them. I probably need to head over there for a cleaning and a checkup again. But I went there initially just for that, and I thought, hey, it'll be fine. It'll be quick. It'll be easy. Well, actually, during that checkup, they so thorough. In fact, they found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. Yeah, that was going to be quite the problem. A disastrous situation potentially, but not for me because I was in the right hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. They acted quickly, made sure that I was well informed, and made sure I was comfortable and knowledgeable and educated about the process. Got the procedure scheduled, got it done. Was back at work within a couple of days, and thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. Now, for you, hopefully, it's not something as serious as having all your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully, for you, it's something routine and easy. But if it is something serious, trust me, folks, you're in the right hands with Dr. Eckert and his team. General dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. They're always on the cutting edge of the technological advances in dentistry. And right now, because of that, they can give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile. You'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. This is a lifelike solution, a permanent lifelike solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, that you need dentures, or you already have dentures, this is a revolutionary alternative to dentures. And it sounds too good to be true, folks. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can change your life, and Dr. U wants to change your life for the better. So don't wait. Give them a call, 512-345-3166, 512-345-3166. And right now, for all Horn listeners, you get free Zoom whitening right now for all Horn listeners with any treatment with Dr. U. So go check them out, drueckert.com, drueckert.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I know we're up against it, so I'll try to be quick here with what the facts, what the stats. Cowboys fans should feel good about the young rookie center that they have, Cooper Beebe. Amazing story. Never played center ever in his college career, and then now is the starting center for the Cowboys, and they're being drafted in the third round. Cooper Beebe has allowed 0 pressures for the second time in his first 4 games as starting center for the Cowboys. He has allowed just 3 pressures this season on 165 blocking snaps, 1.8% pressure rate. Dude's legit. I mean, that was a hell of a find by the Dallas Cowboys. That was good stuff because who would have known? I mean, he played every position on the O line except center. The Cowboys like he's a center. And it's worked out great for him. How about this one? We've been talking about big dogs. Big dogs. That big dogs are underdogs in the NFL. Some say of at least 6 points, and there are others who say of at least 5 points. So 5.5 points or 6 points. Just depends on what book you're looking at. How about this one? With the Giants win last night, underdogs of 6 points or more are now 13-1 against the spread this season. 13-1. Dogs of 6+ points haven't finished September even 70% or better since 1978. And now with that record, that 13-1 record, they cover by the way, they cover the spread by an average of 9.3 points per game, by the way. Not the obviously Giants. But it's the best start for against the spread big dogs in history. That's what we talked about. That dogs of 7+ points have gone 4-0 straight up. First time dogs of 7+ or above 500 straight up through 3 weeks since 1956. So we'll see how they stand up in obviously week 4 of the NFL. Dogs of 5.5, who will hit this and then we'll go to break. Dogs of 5.5, underdogs of 5.5 points or more. They're 15-2 against the spread this season, 10-5 straight up. Vegas hadn't figured it out yet. So find your big dogs. I believe Patrick went through them yesterday, right? The Patriots are a big dog.
Patriots were 10 points. I believe the Chargers are big dogs.
You're right.
As
the Chargers
well.
are a big dog in there too. Yep. Oh, here. I got them here. Wait for real quick. Here are your big dogs. Because, matter of fact, you just had one because the Giants were one.
Jacksonville's one at 6 points now.
Yep. You're right about that. Jacksonville's won 6.5 against Houston. They're 6.5 point. San Francisco versus Patriots. Patriots are a 10.5 point big dog there. And that one, you brought the Chargers 7.5 to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Another big dog. And I thought there was one.
Broncos. Broncos are 7.5 point dogs to the Jets.
Boom. Good job. Yeah. So there you go. One or two of those. The way it's looking right now, hell, 2 of those will at least cover. Get you in the door. The way the big dogs right now are covering the spread. All right, there you go. That's enough. What the facts, what the stats. We come back. We'll get into the Cowboys and their big win over the Giants last night. We'll give you all the details. We'll talk about the Cowboys' rush defense, which looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. We'll talk about that coming up. Also, we'll go behind the Burn Orange curtain, hear from Steve Sarkisian regarding their upcoming opponent and the quarterback position at Texas. We'll get you an update there and talk about the status of the announcement, I should say, of who is going to start for Texas versus Mississippi State. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo! Football 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. And 512 means Patrick Davis, my co-host, the Idillionaire. He's playing jams from local bands and local artists who you have a chance to see live right here in the ATX. Who are jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Curtis Lee. He's going to be part of that Alzheimer's Association and some of the families of Austin musicians Alzheimer's benefit show happening Sunday at Radio East. Show starts about 2 p.m. You go out there. I'm going to go out there after the Texans game. I'll head out there and be there all day. All ages show. So it'll be a fun one with a lot of really good Austin musicians playing part of that one Sunday, benefiting some families of Austin musicians with Alzheimer's, dealing with Alzheimer's.
And where's that again?
Radio East. So it's down there. It's on 71, I believe. Just off 71 down there, just past 35 East. A new venue, really cool venue they built out there. So,
all right. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Patrick. We appreciate that. Sounds like a great cause. Also, Patrick does the hard work coming up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day. You can go check that out. That is already posted for you on X at the Horn ATX. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day.
Big Fat Poll of the Day. How many points will Texas allow against Mississippi State? Right now, 8-13 is winning with 46%.
People think that Mississippi State offense is prolific, don't they?
Prolific to get 13 points against this Texas team.
Well, but they don't have. I think they don't have the starting quarterback. So I would have went. That's what I would have went with Blake Shapen.
Yeah,
I would have went 8-13. With Shapen out, I gotta take one of those scores off the board.
Yeah, then 31 or 32% for 1-7. 15% of people saying 14 plus. Come on, guys. Look, I get. We're being a little
panic.
We're being a little cocky here, but we have not. Yeah. We have allowed 22 points this season.
The entire season.
4 games so far, they've allowed 22 points.
Yes.
I get if you want to say next week, we don't get to say 14 plus against Oklahoma. That is a team, and now they're struggling too. But at least that team is at least somewhat of a better football team than Mississippi State is. Now they're struggling offensively too, but they're a better offensive team than Mississippi State is. Mississippi State is falling. Look at the line. Just telling you, Vegas doesn't miss that by that much, and sometimes they're off. But is a big line for a reason, which is there is a backup quarterback who has at most started one game. At most, he started one game, and it's with a different coach.
Yeah,
because it's a new coach this year. So everything going into it. Blake Shapen was the guy that you thought would be able to get some work done. He's out. I don't see 2 touchdowns happening in this game.
Like I said, if they do, Longhorn fans will be freaking out. Even if Texas could win, I don't know, 40. They could win like 52-17.
Yeah.
And Longhorn fans will be right now. They'd be freaking out about them 2 touchdowns.
How
the hell did they do that? Mississippi State scored those 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
Basically, they've had one blown play this season. Maybe 1 or 2 blown plays.
Yeah, in terms of a blown play, it was just a big run versus UTSA was their big blown play. They gave up a big play to Michigan, a couple of them, mostly because of quarterback scrambling, extending the play. Yes. Davis Warren threw kind of some jump balls and contested catches. Though there was a couple of explosive plays. They haven't really given up many. I'll go check. I believe if me thinking about it just off the top of my head, I want to say they've given up just plays of 20 plus yards. I'm going to say it's at like 4.
Yeah, I'd say it's under 5. Defense. It's 5 or under, I'll say.
Right, just think it up because I'll go check it right now because I can go check. I'll go check it while we do the Horn headlines. I bet it said, I bet it's under 5. I think I can think of like 3 right now. UTSA run, 2 plays in the Michigan game. And that's really up, but I could miss one somewhere in there.
Yeah, like a late, so that we just
something late, something like that. So I'm gonna say 4, but I could be. It's probably more than. It's probably like 6. We try to just miss. We're probably being way too arrogant. It's probably more like 6.
It's like 6 in 4 games.
I'm gonna say it's 6. I'm gonna say Texas has allowed 6 plays. I'll go check right now. I'll go do it.
All right. Yeah, but that's my point though. So when we ask this question, there's a reason because this defense has been really, really good through 4 games. I get some of those opponents weren't as good. I get it. But Colorado State was it was an offense that could have put up explosive plays and didn't really do it. Michigan did have some on us because that's a team with really good O-line, could build some time. I just don't. Is another one of those games. 7. Oh, 7.
7. 20+ yard plays this year.
I'm disgusted.
So we were a little, we're a little cocky. 7. I knew it was. When I said 4, I was like, I know I've missed some. I can't even think of them. I have to go back and check and see how many, because I can only think of like those.
Think of like
3.
4, yeah.
Off the top of my head, 3 or 4, but I'll go check. But either way, it's not a lot. And I don't know if Mississippi State, we'll see. Mississippi State's offense, though, with Blake Shapen actually was still somewhat explosive. And that offense, the way it's engineered to create these basic stress factors in your defense, right? The wide alignment of the receivers, the vertical shots down the field, the tempo and the pace, they're just little stress factors. And at one point, you're under stress, right? People crack under stress, right? They break under stress. And it basically depends on how structurally sound your defense is. But at one point, with all those stress factors being applied, simultaneously, your defense just makes a mistake. Like, makes a mistake here, makes a mistake there, and leads to a big play. So I would have seen that happening with Blake Shapen as the quarterback.
100%.
I'm not sure how often that happens with Van Buren or Parsons as the QB.
Yeah.
That they can take advantage of those moments where the defense is vulnerable because it has been stressed by the formation, by the strategy of that veer and shoot offense. So we'll see. Right now, I'm going 6 points. I could see a third field goal. Now, I don't think they score a touchdown though. I think Texas in the red zone, they get really stout. I think they both their back in the red zone, and so
we need to. I haven't even looked at what the Mississippi State kicker does either. You see what he's got.
I have not. Yeah, you're right. That's another consideration. If he's got a good leg and he's consistent, if they get close enough, we'll see how often they can cross midfield. Like I said, I really am wondering how they're going to move the football against this Texas defense, because they don't really have they got Kevin Coleman Jr. is their best wide receiver. He's a really good player for them. And actually, he's a guy that can make, Kevin Coleman Jr. He's a good player for him. Actually, Sark recruited him at one point, but he ended up at committed to Jackson State, committed to Dion, came into the same in that same recruiting class with Travis Hunter, went to Louisville, and from Louisville ended up at Mississippi State. He's probably their most dynamic weapon on offense, but he's their leading receiver. But that's about it. They don't have a lot of weapons on that offense. They don't have a lot of, high caliber elite players that will cause Texas problems. But we shall see. All right, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out. It's posted at the Horn ATX on X. We're going to talk about the Cowboys and their win over the Giants on the other side, and also we'll talk a little bit about Sark's announcement about who's going to be the starting quarterback. We'll get into all that, but first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros head to Cleveland tonight to begin the final series of the regular season with the Guardians. The Astros are locked in at the 3 seed, so may rest some players through the series, while the Guardians are still competing with the Yankees for the number 1 overall seed in the AL. Roniel Blanco is scheduled to get the start tonight for Houston. The Rangers lost to Oakland last night 3-2 in the final game in the Oakland Coliseum. Kumar Rocker pitched 4 2/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, and the Oakland crowd of 46,889 stayed for the final pitch as Janikowski grounded out to third. The Rangers take on the Angels this weekend to finish off their season, with Jacob deGrom scheduled to take the mound tonight. In the NFL, the Cowboys held on to beat the Giants 20-15 on Thursday Night Football. The Dallas defense held the Giants to 26 yards rushing and no touchdowns, but lost some key players with Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons all leaving the game with injuries. The Texans take on the winless Jaguars in an AFC South battle on Sunday as Houston hopes to rebound from a tough loss to Minnesota last week. And in college football, number 7 Miami will take on Virginia Tech tonight as Cam Ward continues his campaign for the Heisman. While on Saturday, number 20 Oklahoma State plays their second top 25 matchup in a row, facing number 23 Kansas State. Number 16 Notre Dame gets a test with number 15 Louisville, and a huge SEC matchup of number 2 Georgia trying to take out number 4 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Coach Sark said yesterday that he'll be naming his starting quarterback for Saturday today, as Texas will take on Mississippi State at 3:15 to begin their SEC schedule. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. And we talked about how the Cowboys had to do something about their rush defense, had to show some improvement versus the New York Giants. And if the Giants can run on the Cowboys, I said yesterday, then everybody in the league is going to be able to run on the Cowboys. If they can't stop this Giants running attack, or at least show improvement versus this Giants running attack, then there was no hope. All hope was lost. Well, that is not the case. The Giants did not run all over the Cowboys. They only rushed for 26 yards on 24 attempts. So the Cowboys are able to keep hope alive and also keep their season alive. Now 2-2, keeping the Giants to 1.1 yards per rush. Think about it, the Cowboys came into that game allowing 5.4 yards per carry, the most in the NFL. Also the worst rush defense in the NFL. Hell, they were allowing 4 yards after contact per carry. Leading going into that game versus the Giants, and then they held the Giants to 26 yards on the ground, fewest yards allowed on the ground by any team in the NFL this season. So that is quite the bounce back by the Dallas Cowboys defense. So I'll give them a lot of credit. And by the way, it was a team effort. By the way, DeMarvion Overshown looked really good. He ended up with 6 tackles in the game, so I assume he's going to play a lot more. He should play a lot more. They need guys that, he flies to the football, plays sideline to sideline. And I think he's a guy that's earned more playing time with the Dallas Cowboys. They also were more stout at the point of attack. We talked about this yesterday. As a D tackle, you got to either be able to, penetrate, or you got to be able to, stand the ground, right? And be able to create the point of attack. And they weren't doing that. They were getting pushed back. All right. So in this game, though, you saw them penetrate, make some plays, reset the line of scrimmage a couple of times. The edges were playing really well until the injuries. And then Micah Parsons got hurt, which we'll talk about. He was carted off. He had actually left the field twice. He left the field once for the stinger, then came back, and then left the field for good, was carted off because of an ankle injury. X-rays were negative. He's going to take an MRI today. He hopes that he can play in the next game. He's optimistic about it playing in the next game, but the X-rays were negative. So for him, at least that's good news. But the MRI is going to happen today, and I'm sure there'll be an update on the Micah Parsons' status with that ankle injury. And also DeMarcus Lawrence, he had a foot injury, so he left the game too. And Trevon Diggs left the game at one point. He went down, but came back onto the sideline. I saw him in the post game. There's not been an update on him, but the Cowboys, there was some adversity in that game through all the injuries that they had on defense. That did not derail the defense. Defense still held strong, even in the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones actually played one of the better games I've seen Daniel Jones play. I don't watch a lot of Daniel Jones, but he looked pretty good. 29 of 40, 281 yards. People were criticizing him for not going down the field, but I think he just was working the intermediate and the short game, and basically only had 2 receivers to work with. He was only going to Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. That's it. It was Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson. 23 of his 29 completions, Malik Neighbors or Wan'Dale Robinson. So he's only going to 2 guys. And when Malik Neighbors went down with the concussion on that 4th down that they couldn't convert, where he's tiptoeing, toe tapping the sideline there and almost came down. It was a beautiful throw actually by Daniel Jones, and it was contested by Trevon Diggs. Really good defense by him too. Ended up dropping that pass, and on that play he was down for a while, and I believe that's the play where he sustained the concussion, and that is the diagnosis. And he says he's okay, and I think he posted something on social media that he's going to be fine, but I'm assuming now he's in concussion protocol, so we'll give you an update on that. But though that guy's legit. We told you he was going to be a problem for the Cowboys. 12 receptions, 115 yards, over 9 yards per reception. And Daniel Jones, he makes Daniel Jones look capable and look competent in that game. But when he went down, Daniel Jones was 7 of 15 in the fourth quarter, 45 yards, So once the Cowboys figured out he's only going to go to Malik Neighbors, and hell, we were telling you that earlier this week, like, hey, that's the guy. You got to take him away. And they, basically started to, and Patrick brought it up earlier, the Cowboys started to pay more attention to him, started to allocate resources to defend him. They started to move him around. I got this stat from Next Gen, and you've heard me talk about targets to motion. I'm obsessed with that concept, that cheat code. Basically, you target a player who's in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap. Malik Neighbors had 12 receptions for 115 yards on 15 targets. 10 of those 15 targets was when he was a target to motion. He was the guy that was in motion prior to the snap, at the time of the snap, and he caught 9 of those 10 receptions. It was the most targets to motion by a player in the Next Gen era since 2018. So they whatever the Cowboys were doing, their adjustment was, all right, let's just move him around. We're trying to hide him within the offense, or we're trying to hunt matchups with him. And they did a good job, but the Cowboys still made the plays when they needed to make the plays. Also, throwing this out there, since we're talking about that Cowboys defense and how well they played, I think ultimately the secondary could be a concern with the injuries. Now, Trevon Diggs came back into the game, but the Cowboys safeties, they look slow in that game a little bit. They, in some of those situations, they looked, I don't know if there's an injury, but I don't know. The Cowboys safeties look slow. They might need to start giving some of those young bucks some run. And I like Malik Hooker, and he makes some good plays out there, but I wonder when they face some more high octane offenses if the safeties for the Cowboys might get exposed.
Yeah,
just throwing it
Malik
out
Hooker
there.
made that really bad play at the end of the game too, where he went up for the catch and didn't get it, and
and it went right over. Yeah,
went right over. And I think it was Wandale, wasn't it? That
I think you're right. Yep,
that just misjudged it and lost it. And if he catches that ball in stride and doesn't get phased by Hooker, that's a touchdown, and they lose the game.
You're actually right about that. I forgot all about that play.
And
it was
cannot do that in
right
that moment in the game where all you have to do is hold him to a field goal and you win. Like all you have to do is not allow him in the end zone, and you're like, "Now I'm gonna try and pick the ball off and in the game."
Yep, that's when you're supposed to play through the man there. Like let the man take you to the ball and just basically stay with him to the last second and knock it away. Unless you're just really sure of your ball skills. Unless you're, you got amazing ball skills like a Trevon Diggs. But I'm with you. I forgot all about that. Good point. Yeah, and they were almost exposed there. I would watch the safeties there. That's something that concerned me watching the game. And the Giants don't really have a speedy, high octane passing attack, if you will. But Malik Neighbors is the real deal. That's for sure. Cowboys also had a lot of penalties in this game. The game was ugly anyway because of all the penalties. They had 11 though. The Cowboys had 11 penalties in this game. That's something to watch. That led to a lot of, we talked about this with the Texans, that led to a lot of third and longs, which is why they were 3 of 10 on third and longs. 3 of 10 on third downs, and a lot of those were third and long situations. Also, since we're talking about third down, Cowboys defense was really good on third down too. They held the Giants at 5 of 16 on third down, which was really good. So the Cowboys did. They showed up in critical moments. Red zone, they stepped up, and third down, they stepped up. Yes, it's the Giants, but you got to start somewhere. And Cowboys defense, I think they did it considering the losses they had and considering the low point where they were, the worst rush defense in the league. I thought that was a nice bounce back performance. Does not show me they're going to be a contender to, win a championship or, win the NFC or anything. But the way they were looking, we weren't sure they were going to be a 500 team or be above 500. Now we at least go, okay, they could win it. They could compete in the division. Can they compete to win the conference? I don't see that yet
now,
with the Cowboys.
That being said, Jerry Jones, you still need a defensive tackle. You still need a running back.
Yes.
That nothing changed with that win. I get you held him great. Mozzie Smith probably had his best game as a Cowboy.
Yep, that's true.
But that does not mean your problems have been solved, because in the next couple of weeks, we will see it again when you go and play against the Steelers and the Lions. Now, if you hold the Lions and the Steelers to under 3 yards a carry, fine. You don't got to make a trade, but you're not going to.
Improvement. Yeah. Yeah, agreed. That's a great point. There's no way that's going to happen.
And again,
I wouldn't even wait that long.
I'm also not saying you have to give up a second-round pick to go get the best defensive tackle. You gave a 6th-round pick for Hankins a couple of years ago. You can find value, a 5th or 6th-round pick. Go find a guy that is on a team that's on one of these teams that's already losing, and they're 0-3, and they maybe want to move on from somebody, but they've got a run-stopping defensive tackle. Go out there and go get him and put him on your roster, and you will feel much better, and everyone will feel much better. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
So you still got to go out and get that, and then give you a couple more weeks, and then go get another running back because you need another running back too. But
totally agree,
D
bro.
tackle first.
I agree. Yep, I totally agree. Don't let this distort your image and view of the team. They still have holes in their roster holes. I agree. So defense, like I said, that's a nice step up. I think Demo should play more. I agree with Patrick. Trade for a D tackle, and Deron Bland will get healthy. What Micah Parsons, that's something to monitor. What's going on with Micah?
Yeah.
Micah's going to try to play though, but it's not something that's a season-ending injury, so he's got to be out for a couple of weeks.
And as long as you still have him or Lawrence, Marshawn Nealon's playing well enough right now.
He is playing good.
That you can have him fill in for a couple, and it's not going to feel bad. Kalen Carson, if he comes back and plays well, he's been playing well in the secondary. You just had him out with injury as well, but he's actually played well as a rookie. He would seem like a really good pick, Kalen Carson. So you've got some guys in there that are playing well. It's just, a couple of roster deficiencies, pick those up, and all of a sudden your chances go from, okay, you're like a 10-win team. You can be a 10-win team this season because you'll play some you're in a division where you can win some of these games, to, okay, this is a playoff team again that, we'll see what happens. But if you maybe figure it out, and if the run game, figures somehow, you get the right guy in there, it changes a lot, because now you let Dak Prescott be an actual quarterback instead of a guy who is just has to be the entire offense.
Yeah, right now it feels that way. And because Dak, he was 22 or 27, 221 yards, 2 touchdowns. The game plan, some people were upset they couldn't throw the football downfield. I think that was by design. We talked about this yesterday. Giants actually had a decent pass rush coming into the game. They were second actually in the NFL in sacks. So that's why I think they got rid of the ball so quickly. He was 13 of his 22 of his 13 of his 22 completions were under 2.5 seconds. Matter of fact, he was 13 of 14 when throwing the ball under 2.5 seconds for 143 yards, both of his touchdowns too. So the quick game, I believe, was deliberate, intentional. That was their focus. Get the ball out quickly. He was sacked once and hit 3 times, but their pass rush was rendered, pretty ineffective. Because of how insulated he was with the time to throw.
Thibodeau looked good for the Giants. Thibodeau looked really good. And so that was a guy you knew he was coming. And Brian Burns, they were able to hold him off. Terrence Steele did a really good job holding him off. But you got the holdings on Guyton in there because of the pass rush as well. So you're trying to get the ball out, because even if he's not getting hit, there was holds, stuff like that.
That's true.
You just got to get the ball out, because a 35-yard catch and a 10-yard loss penalty, it's just 10 yards loss.
Yeah, and a lot of that, the Cowboys can do on early downs, because they know they don't really have a real running game. They have a symbolic running game. They did rush for 81 yards. Rico Dotto ended up being the leading rusher, but the Cowboys still are struggling there, and that's why Patrick mentioned they got to trade for a running back. So, and they cannot afford to be undisciplined and have 11 penalties, and a lot of those on offense. They can't afford that. They're not good enough offensively to be behind the chains and in those type of adverse situations. Dak is great, though. Dak is doing a really good job of managing crisis situations for you on offense. So I like what I'm seeing from Dak. I actually like the way the passing game is progressing. Told you guys, Jake Ferguson's your number 2 now. I mean, he's your number 2, the passing, the weapon, if you will, and passing game threat. He is definitely number 2. And then there's Brandon Cooks behind him. And they need to make sure they're using Brandon Cooks the right way, which is mostly on movement routes, running, movement routes down the field where he's on the run. He doesn't need to run a lot of stop routes. I think they need to run him on those side to keep those with CD and some of the other guys and kind of stick with his strength. But the Cowboys found a way to get the win. It was something they had to. If they didn't get a win, and they've dominated the Giants anyway. They've won 14 of the last 15, and I won't say Dak has won 13 in a row versus the Giants. But I am worried about the Cowboys offense a little bit, not just the running game. We talked about that. That's obvious. They got to fix the running game. But they're really right now behind, and I'll say at the bottom of a lot of the rates of some of the cheat codes that I talk about. That I talk about the hacks all the time. Those cheat concepts, if you will, play action pass, motion, as we talk about ad nauseum, screenplays, stuff like that. How about these numbers? This was prior to the game. So this was prior to last night's game. I was gonna bring it up on the show yesterday, and I didn't because we got into so much other stuff. The Cowboys right now, bottom of the league in play action rate. They are, if you look at play action pays, not bottom, but below average. They're 18th. This was from ESPN. Their screen rate, man, they're 25th in screens. If you look at motion at the snap, they're 29th in motion at the snap, and they're 21st overall in motion. And if you go look at RPO rates, they're 22nd. Cowboys should start using more of those cheat codes and hacks I talk about. I don't know why they're not even being a moderate with these concepts. They're being conservative with the concepts, and I wonder why. I always say being extremist with these cheat codes. Cowboys are not being extreme or gratuitous with these cheat codes right now, and I don't understand why. They would help your offense. Your offense needs all the help it can get until they get some semblance of a running game. So play action pass, screen rate, your RPO rate, motion at the snap. The Cowboys should be definitely above average in all of those and not below average and toward the bottom of the league in rates of all those cheat codes. Just keep that in mind. And when you're watching the Cowboys game, I don't know what's going on with the Texas Coast offense, but that ain't it. They need to up the usage and the rates of a lot of those common cheat codes that all the best offenses in the NFL seem to be using to hack these modern defenses. All right, we come back. We'll get into Steve Sarkisian's media availability yesterday. Spoke to the media, gave them an update on the quarterback situation at Texas, who's going to start versus Mississippi State. We'll come back and discuss that. We'll also hear from him talking about their upcoming opponent. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get some Texas football conversation. Of course, the big topic of conversation is about who's going to start at quarterback for the University of Texas. Sark revealed yesterday that actually he wasn't going to reveal that until today. Here's Steve Sarkisian.
We're going to decide on the quarterback thing tomorrow. And again, it won't be a secret. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. Just want to give Quinn every opportunity to see if he's ready to play and what he looks like. But I'd say he's improved every day. I think Arch has had a very good week, and I would say this: Trey Owens probably had his best practice as a Longhorn today, so that was really encouraging as well.
All right, says he's not. So this is not gamesmanship, basically, is what he's saying. I'm not trying to pull a wool over anybody's eyes. It's all about giving Quinn, the maximum amount of time so that he can be evaluated as healthy as possible. My thought process would be if you're 24 hours, before the game, basically the day before the game, and still not sure about Quinn's status versus Mississippi State, what some people are saying is the worst team in the SEC, not even worth the risk. Let's put Arch in there. Kind of, I initially felt like that, when they had the injury that, hey, we should keep Quinn out as long as possible so that he can rest and recover as much as possible. And this is the only stretch of the season where you'll have that luxury. And now that Sark is still evaluating, said a day before the game, it wouldn't even be worth it, in my opinion. Because I would like him to have already been sure. If he announced it on Thursday, then I'd have felt better about, okay, yeah, all right, they were sure all week long that it was Quinn. He must have been progressing so rapidly that was never any question it was going to be Quinn. But there's still a question. And which means they've been splitting the reps, which they should have. That's responsible. But if there's still a question this close to game time, I don't even want to risk it. That's how I feel. Not worth it.
Yeah.
Not versus Mississippi State. Georgia, yes. Oklahoma, yes.
No.
Mississippi State, no.
Very much feels like he's giving Quinn every opportunity to work hard this week and show what he's made of and be a leader on the field during practice, but still putting him in the position of like, I can't just name you the starter because you're not 100%. Why would I put you out there if you're not 100%? So I need you to understand it, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and let you practice all week because you want to practice, and I want to put you on the sideline and take you out, you mentally out of how well you're playing right now. So let's keep you mentally sharp. Let's keep you in it. But then when it comes down to it on Friday after practice, when you walk into practice, they've already had the conversation or will have the conversation after practice and go, yeah, you're still feeling it. Why would we put you out there? We don't.
Yeah. And I almost wonder if they put a heavy workload on him yesterday to see how he would, the point of to see how he would recover today. Like, yeah. Hey, what's your recovery like too? Like, do you feel we threw more than we've thrown? They're probably doing that every day. Probably throw a little bit more every day with him, and probably maybe a heavy workload yesterday to see how he could deal with it. Maybe throwing whichever motion caused him the most pain when the injury first occurred. Maybe a lot of those throws to see, like, all right, can you make those throws now without wincing or without favoring that side, something like that. So probably a heavy workload, see how he will recover. And I'm with you. Even if he recovers well enough, I'd still would go, no, I'm keeping you out. It doesn't, like I said, for me personally, I don't think it's worth the risk, but we'll see. I mean, Sark, I did not expect him to give Jaden Blue 25 rushes in the game versus ULM and 7 targets. Nobody expected that with the injuries at running back. So Sark's got his own thought process that he's operating by, and we should trust Sark.
And I do trust Sark, and that's it. Is if Quinn goes out and threw however many passes yesterday and had a heavy workload and comes back in the day, says, I feel perfectly fine, goes out there and throws a bunch of passes today, I could, I think he could push Sark's hand too, and Sark will go, fine, all right, we'll put you out there. If you want it that bad, I'm not going to take it from you.
That's what I'm saying. I don't. Their relationship also matters, right? We don't know their relationship. He may go, nah, coach, I'm definitely playing, coach. If I can play, I'm playing. Like, ain't that, and maybe some Sark's like, all right, I don't want that confrontation. If you really want, yes, we don't know. I don't know all the variables at play here. I admit it. After watching Jaden Blue get 25 rushes, there are variables at play there that there are more variables than just how safe can we make the situation, or how much can we bubble wrap a player and safeguard them? Like that's not the only thing that he's considering. He's considering more than that. So, all right, let's talk about other things that Sark is considering with this group. You also have a lot of injuries at the running back position. We talked about that. Trey Wisner has been upgraded to probable. So he's listed as probable on the latest availability report, but you do have 4 running backs that are out. Your emergency running backs, Velton Gardner and Colin Page, they are out. And of course, we know CJ Baxter and Christian Clark have been out all season long. So here is Sark talking about the trust that he has in Coach Choice, who's been challenged by the injuries in that running back room. He's one of the best in the country. And he'll start talking about the depth and Coach Choice in the running back situation.
I wouldn't know if I've ever not gotten mad about stuff. But you probably have to ask the coaches and the players that, there's always stuff. There's a million things that I want to get better at and get right. And, even a lot of times, the result of the play is a touchdown, but I see the left guard getting beat, or I see the other receiver run the wrong route, or I see the running back not pick up the protection, and everybody else is cheering. And I'm kind of still upset that we didn't do something correctly on the play. So I don't ever have a problem of finding areas for us to improve upon. It's just a matter of how much do I exude that type of energy, as opposed to celebrating a couple guys that did do it right on the play. So
yeah, that was Sark talking about how tough it is. Or some people ask him, is it tough for a team this good, that's the number 1 team in the country, find things to coach him up on? He's basically said, no, I can always find stuff to coach him up on. But here's the clip that I was referring to about the running back situation, and Sark acknowledging Coach Choice and how he can, as a coach, how he's done a great job dealing with the injury situation.
But I think Coach Choice has done a fantastic job. He's an excellent coach. Coach Choice definitely has a worker's mentality, almost an overachiever's mentality. There's a mindset to his approach of which you attack every day. And I think that our guys really respond to that. And there's a real connectivity in that running back room that I think pushes one another to perform and to perform even better. And so, hey, we're not a finished product with some of those guys. They're all evolving. They all continue to improve. But I love the growth I've seen out of all of them, from Jaden Blue all the way down. I mean, these guys are all continuing to get better.
Yeah, I mean, they got to grow up fast. That's just the reality of it. You don't have the luxury of being able to bring guys along slowly right now at that position. Sark also he talked about a lot of different things, but he was also asked about preparing for the Mississippi State quarterback situation, because that also is a little bit up in the air. Blake Shapen's going to be out for the rest of the season. Mike Van Buren is one of the quarterbacks expected to make his start versus Texas. And also Chris Parsons is going to be available too. Young, inexperienced quarterbacks who don't have a lot of film out there. Sark was asked about how much of a challenge is it to prepare for a quarterback where you don't really have a lot of film out there.
That's the biggest challenge right there. You hit the nail on the head. It's a small sample size. They've had a week now to prepare a game plan for the things that he does well. And that's what we're going to have to kind of sort through and figure out. But knowing Jeff Lebby's a really good offensive mind, that he's going to put him in a good position to have some success. They're going to do the things that he does well. They're going to utilize other aspects of their offense to kind of get some easy completions, the jet sweeps, the different things. I'm sure that we'll see some wildcat to alleviate some of the pressure there as well. So all those things add up to, he's going to be in a good position to perform well. Our job is to try to get him uncomfortable, and we'll see how effective we are.
All right, that's Sark talking about the upcoming opponent for the Longhorns, the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We come back. We actually want to hear from Sark, but this is Sark talking or being asked about one of the national stories, the Matthew Sluka story, which there is now an update on the Matthew Sluka story, the young man from UNLV, the quarterback who invoked his own red shirt after what he believes was a disappointing lack of integrity on, that's what he says, on the part of UNLV, because they did not fulfill their NIL obligations, their financial commitments to him. UNLV has a different story. They claim he wanted to renegotiate. So you got a he said, they said situation here. We'll get Sark's thoughts about it and an update actually on the Matthew Sluka situation for you. We'll do that and off the record. Also, we got some other stories that we'll dive into as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to a couple of off-the-record stories. Now, by now, everyone's familiar with Matthew Sluka's story, the young man who has left the University of Nevada, Las Vegas football program. He left UNLV's program because of a dispute over NIL promises that were made that were not fulfilled. At least that's what he has said. That's his side story. So he said, they said at this point. Matthew Sluka claims they offered him a coach, an assistant coach on the staff. That's his claim. Offered him $100,000, and they're 3-0. Best start since 1984. He is a senior, or at least he was a senior with them. He came from Holy Cross, transfer with them, and they pulled off a huge upset win over Kansas. Most recently as a 10.5-point underdog. And now he is, of course, as their starting quarterback, leading rusher and their leading passer, by the way, because they run basically a run-heavy attack. They're like the 8th most run-heavy offense in the country, by the way. So they run a lot. UNLV's offensive coordinator is Brendan Marion, by the way. Shout out to Brendan Marion, who the innovator of the go-go offense, which, by the way, he was the wide receiver coach at Texas, and Texas took some of those concepts too. But I digress. So he decided to leave the program, invoke his own red shirt because there were unfulfilled promises, all right, that he says that UNLV, at least a coach, made him. UNLV's side of things is that he came in to renegotiate a deal that had already been agreed upon. And UNLV says that all of their, at least their collectives say, all of their deals are done in contract. They are actually contracts are signed, and his representative, Matthew Sluka's representative, is claiming that it was a verbal contract that they had. And the CEO of Blueprint Sports, their collective that operates UNLV's collective, they said they don't believe in verbal contracts. They don't do verbal contracts. All they do is contracts that are written and signed that can be documented. So that's where, obviously the miscommunication is, or the misunderstanding is. And since Matthew Sluka has decided he's going to move on, and there are already reported offers for his services whenever the transfer portal opens up. So here's the latest. Oh, and by the way, Haj Malik Williams is going to be the starting quarterback for UNLV in their game versus Fresno State, I believe. And he's a 6th-year senior, played 5 seasons at FCS. So he's going to be the starting quarterback for them now. But here's the story. Here's the latest update. So, and this comes from the Las Vegas Review Journal. Shout out to my man CB at Chris GB 002,000, who sent us this story. A representative for a local casino mogul reached out to UNLV officials Wednesday with an offer to pay the reported asking price of former quarterback Matthew Sluka. Sluka announced late Tuesday his intention to redshirt the remainder of the season over his belief that the school had failed to fulfill a verbal commitment to pay him $100,000. UNLV has, of course, as I just mentioned, they dispute that claim. On Wednesday, Circa CEO Derek Stevens and Vice President of Operations Mike Palm decided it would be in the best interest of the community to do their part to help UNLV during a historic football season. So Palm reached out to UNLV with an offer from Circa to pay the money and keep the Rebels starting quarterback on the team. He said, quote, Derek and I talked about the situation and thought it would be worth it for $100,000 to keep the Rebels' playoff hopes alive. Palm said he was told almost immediately there was no chance of such a deal being worked out, as Sluka had already left the program and the relationship has soured as a result of the story. So, couldn't happen. But that's what I thought. I was like, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it because they could make a playoff run. And then how much is a playoff run worth to the community and to the school? What, I don't know, tens of millions of dollars in free media and press?
Yeah. No, at this point, I need the UNLV really needs to get another story going, because right now their big story is the collective saying all of our agreements are written. Like, no, we get that. He's saying an assistant coach lied to him. You're not saying they didn't. You have not once said an assistant coach didn't lie to him. You keep saying the collective didn't sign an agreement, which tells me an assistant coach lied to him, because you are not coming out and disavowing and having all your guys come out and say, we 100% never agreed to this. Not a coach on our staff has ever asked for NIL money or has promised NIL money. That has never happened. They keep saying all our agreements are in writing. You go, well, I get that. That's not what we said. We said that when they were recruiting him, a coach says you can make $100,000 here. And he took that seriously. And then y'all didn't follow up on it, and then it went away. That's the problem. because those coaches can still go out and lie.
Yeah, that's true. And I agree that they have not addressed that part of his claim.
Like we get he did not have a written one. We fully understand that. That's crystal clear. It's not what he's saying though.
I know, and then to me that when they said, because UNLV also claims that the representative made financial demands upon the university and its NIL collective in order to continue playing. So they acting like he came in to renegotiate.
Yeah.
When in reality, he probably came in and said, "Hey man, where's that 100,000 that that assistant coach promised?" And they're like, "We didn't promise that." And they're like, "Well, somebody promised my client 100,000, and we have that verbal agreement. We didn't make that up." And they're like, "Yeah, but you ain't got it in writing." And so I agree that it probably both sides are telling their version of the truth here.
Exactly.
And so I'm with you. I think UNLV, it's a bad look optics wise for them, just because you don't pay your quarterback. And in the NIL world, if you don't pay quarterbacks, you don't pay anybody.
And then when the running back came out afterwards and said, "I never made $1 in NIL," you're like, "No, you ain't making no money.
You ain't making no money. You ain't getting nothing. You ain't getting a little side deal to get some free nuggets or something."
Come on now.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think the look is bad ultimately, because it's like, hold on, so y'all don't pay y'all quarterback? He was the starting quarterback.
He got $3,000 to relocate.
Yes,
and then your running back stopped playing as much, and he never got paid. You're like, who are you paying?
Yep. I'm like, that's the thing, because now we've learned that top 25 quarterback can be worth around $600,000 for a top 25 quarterback. We know from Open Doors, and we know from 247 Sports that quarterbacks are making anywhere between starting quarterbacks just in college, anywhere between $150,000 and like $800,000. There's a wide range there. And this guy, all he got was a $3,000 stipend. That's all you get, and you're 3-0. And you got the second most votes of any group of 5 school in the AP poll. What? Man, that's it? I think that's the bad look for UNLV. It's like, oh man, y'all cheap. Ain't no quarterback gonna go there to play. You got at least be breaking out the quarterback's got to make 60 G's these days at least.
Every single parent now and every single player is going to ask, "Hey, so you want me to go there?" And be like, "Okay, what are the actual NIL opportunities?" Oh, because what we hear is there's none.
There's none.
So I'm just saying, like, this other team at least is like, there's opportunities. Their players are getting paid. If I'm on my campus visit, I'm asking every single player how much he's making. Every single one. How much you actually making? $0? Cool, I ain't coming here. You crazy?
I know. Your quarterback made a $3,000.
I'm going to UNLV. This is the end of the road. Give me some money.
And people want to bring up like the effectiveness of Matthews. Like, oh, he's completing less than 50% of his passes, and he's a run first quarterback. I'm like, all that is fine, but he's the starting quarterback of a 3-0 team, and we've established what a starting quarterback is worth at the NFL level, whether they're good or not. Daniel Jones, and at the college level, whether they're good or not, he's a starting quarterback of a 3-0 team that's ranked. That's how it is. Like that's what you are worth. That's why that representative went back in there and said, guys, all these guys around the country are making like $200,000. He's making the lowest end of the low end. So yes, it may be a bad decision for Sluka, because I don't know if he's going to come out on the winning side of this, but it's a bad look for UNLV, because now everybody knows y'all don't pay y'all's quarterback. You don't even pay the QB. Nobody else has got a chance to make money in your program. The NIL optics are terrible.
Yeah, it's not good.
You should have allowed this Circus Sports dude to help you out. I don't know if it's within the rules and all that kind of stuff, but you should have found if you got guys like this that want to help out UNLV and infuse money, take it. Take it.
Pay your failures. Because that's how you go. It's how you're going to compete in today's world.
Yep, you're gonna have to take it. All right, you know what? I had another story I wanted to get to, because Dave Portnoy, he recently, to speak of the value of a quarterback, he recently made some headlines because, and I don't know if he's a Michigan man or just a Michigan supporter. I don't know if he actually went to Michigan or just a Michigan fan. I'm not really sure. But he claims that, hey, man, he's willing to pay big time just to get Michigan a quarterback. Like, he will pay personally. So remember we talked about these sugar daddies. You can be a collective, which is a group of boosters and donors with money, or you can be a directive. It's just you, and you the main sugar daddy. He's talking about being a Michigan sugar daddy, and he made some headlines. So we'll play that on the other side, too. We'll also talk about the Texans. They got a big game coming up. It's big versus the Jazz, because they need to bounce back in a big way after an embarrassing performance versus Minnesota. We'll talk about that on the other side as well, and we'll dive into Rod's rant. Oh, so we got a Rangers report. Hey, we're getting down to the end here. Some of the last Rangers reports of the year right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime the Horn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a freak flag, feel good, fake it till you make it. Ric Flair, woo, football 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. And that's when my man Patrick, our idealionaire, the co-host on the show, he does a great job coming up with all the music themed days of the week. But 512 Fridays is when he plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you can catch live right here in the ATX. Who are jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Brittany Lobus. She is playing part of that show Sunday at Radio East, benefiting the Alzheimer's Association and some of the members of the Austin Music family who are currently dealing with family members that have Alzheimer's and trying to get them some support and a little respite for people dealing with a difficult issue right now. But it'll be a good show. Patrice Pike, Brittany Lobus, Reverend Few, Curtis Lee, Lizzie Carr, all on that bill. It'll be a fun time. It'll be starting off about 2 p.m. on Sunday, all ages show. All the money's going to good causes, and it is going to be a lot of fun. And since the Cowboys have already played, Texans play at noon. I'll be heading out there after the Texans game to go enjoy some good music.
Good music, great cause. Thank you, Patrick, for bringing that to our attention. We appreciate that. We also appreciate your efforts with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, because that's already posted. Go check it out at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll today. How many points will Texas allow against Mississippi State? We gave you 4 options. None, a shutout. 1-7, 8-13, and 14+. Right now, 8-13 is winning with 46% of the vote, 33% of the vote at 1-7. But too many, 15% of the vote still at 14+. I don't like that 14+. And by the way, we were talking about field goals, so I looked up some of the kicker stats.
Man,
I looked up
sick mofo.
9 a.m. on a Friday. It's time for kicker stats, guys. We've run out of things to talk about. It's time for kicker stats. So we looked at Kyle Ferry is the kicker. He's a sophomore. So this season, he's 2 for 3. He's made a 32 and a 23-yarder. He missed a 25-yarder. He's also missed an extra point this year. So that is what he did. Last year, he was 16 for 22, was perfect from 30 to 39-year-old field goals. He was 7-11 from 40 to 49, and a 49-yarder is his career long, which he hit last season. But so he's okay.
Okay.
He's not a great field goal kicker, but 16 to 22, he's not bad at all. It's not somebody in college football. There's much worse kickers out there. And 49 is pretty long. But, yeah, he missed a 25-yarder this year, made it 32 and the 23 so far this season. So a decent enough kicker, but you're probably still going to have to get the ball for them to feel confident putting it out there, and again, especially against a Texas team that's got some size that you don't want to get it blocked and run back or anything like that. You're probably going to try and get it to, the 25-yard line?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a tall task against this defense. I mean, the truth, we talked about it earlier, what they've given up, like 7 20+ yard plays all season long. So they're stingy when it comes up explosive plays. That's usually, and so if you're not giving up explosive plays, then that means you got to march down the field by converting a lot of first downs. And they're top 5 third down defense right now too.
Yeah.
So you talk about it, so it's hard to just convert and make your way down the field. They're number 4 in third down defense, and naturally, so they don't give up a lot of explosive plays. That's a way getting chunk yardage is how you make your way down the field to get in the field goal position or scoring position. And then, or you do it by converting a lot, and it's gonna be hard to convert against them, especially with a backup quarterback out there. And then they don't turn the ball over a lot. So turnovers and special teams, I guess special teams is hidden field position. That could end up leading to them getting favorable field position. But Texas special teams has been pretty buttoned up. They haven't given up a lot of return yardage or anything like that. And turnovers, I guess. So that would be the one where I think turnovers is one thing to watch for them getting easy scores.
Yeah, if Arch plays, does he make an ill-advised pass at some point that gives him
young
field
running
position?
Backs? Right, young running backs fumble. Yes. We've seen that from young Jerry Gibson. So that's something to watch. But other than that, it's going to be really hard for them to get a 70-yard drive, 60-yard drive against this defense.
Yeah, that's the thing tough. Is when you say they're trying to probably get it to the 25, 20-yard line before a field goal, it's just going to be tough to get down there and be able to score over and over again. So I could see 6 points, 2 field goals seems very reasonable.
That's kind of where I am right now.
But that third field goal, I'm not going to give him that third field goal. I'm going to go 1-7. Not giving that third field goal.
If Blake Shapen was there, I'd give him. I already said 10 points.
I would say, because that was the thing, is Blake Shapen's there. I could believe he could find a hole in the defense well enough and get something and scramble, get something, and maybe they get a big play and get in the end zone on something. I could see that. I could see them getting 3 field goals much easier. I could believe that with Blake Shapen. It's with an unknown commodity quarterback. I'm gonna say 2 field goals.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I took away a score basically with Blake Shapen going out, so I'll have him at 6 points total, which means they just get 2 field goals. But we'll see. I mean, this Texas defense just hasn't really been tested, but they have passed every test so far. With flying colors, by the way. I mean, they look fantastic. They're playing like a top 5 defense in the country. All right, so there you go. We'll talk some more Texas football. Actually, we may do that when we get into Rod's rant. We'll talk college football. I think I want to get into that Georgia Bama game just a little bit too. We got to talk about that one. There are a couple other big games, I think.
I mean, Notre Dame Louisville is actually a pretty decent. Because Louisville is that question because they're the only team that plays Clemson. So if they beat Notre Dame, are they someone that can derail Clemson from getting back to the playoffs?
Clemson looks good. I ain't gonna lie. Right. Now they look good. You talked about that. They look good now.
They're looking better, but they don't play anybody. They play Louisville. It's the only team they really play left on their schedule. So that watching what Louisville does against Notre Dame, that's another big one that I'll be keeping an eye on.
I think it's Penn State plays Illinois, right?
Yeah.
And Illinois is a decent team this year. They're ranked. So there's some other games. We'll look around the college football slate a little bit. We also will throw out your Rangers report. We got that coming up. So if we don't get to it this segment, then we will table that for next segment. But here I do want to talk about the Texans a little bit and their matchup coming up versus the Jaguars. I want to preview that for the Texans fans out there. And then we'll get into the Longhorn football conversation, or college football conversation, I should say. Real quick before because we'll get Horn headlines here as well. We talked about the Cowboys earlier in the show, and we broke them down a few times already in their win over the Giants. I just want to throw this out there too. And this, if it is the start of a trend, this would be amazing for the Cowboys, but it could just be them playing against the Giants. The highest graded Pro Football Focus, highest graded player from Thursday night for the Cowboys, Mozzie Smith.
I told you it was his best game as a Cowboy.
You look good.
That was his best game as a Cowboy. I don't know what they figured out that week, but
yeah, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah,
that worked. Good point. I saw that, and I wanted to bring that up because I was, they look good. They look better. Remember I said they look better at the point of attack. D tackles, I need you to hold point or penetrate. And I saw them penetrating and holding point as much as any game so far this season. Maybe that Cleveland Browns game a little bit too, but we know how Cleveland is. Hell, the Giants have beaten Cleveland. Second highest graded players, DeMarvin Overshown.
There you go.
Who led the team in tackles. So highest grade defender. I'm sorry, I said defender. I should play highest grade defender by Pro Football Focus. So there you go, Cowboys fans. If Mozzie Smith if he just play like that every game, and he won't be playing against the Giants, so he won't be that effective because they'll be playing against better competition week to week. But if that's the floor, the baseline for him, that's all you need. Because he wasn't a liability. He didn't get pushed back continuously. Yes. He was holding point and penetrating. If you get that guy, that draft pick is not a bust for you. And that's ultimately what you want. All right. Before we get to the Texans here, let's get educated. Let's get updated. Let's get informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right. Your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros head to Cleveland tonight to begin the final series of the regular season with the Guardians. The Astros are locked in at the 3 seed, so may rest some players through the series, while the Guardians are still competing with the Yankees for the number 1 overall seed in the AL. Roniel Blanco is scheduled to get to start tonight for Houston. The Rangers lost to Oakland last night 3-2 in the final game in the Oakland Coliseum. Kumar Rocker pitched 4 2/3 innings, giving up 3 runs, and the Oakland crowd of 46,889 stayed for the final pitch as Janikowski grounded out to third. The Rangers take on the Angels this weekend to finish off their season, with Jacob deGrom scheduled to take the mound tonight. In the NFL, the Cowboys held on to beat the Giants 20-15 on Thursday Night Football. The Dallas defense held the Giants to 26 yards rushing and no touchdowns, but lost some key players with Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons all leaving the game with injuries. The Texans take on the winless Jaguars in an AFC South battle on Sunday as Houston hopes to rebound from a tough loss to Minnesota. And in college football, the number 7 Miami takes on Virginia Tech tonight as Cam Ward continues his campaign for the Heisman. While on Saturday, number 20 Oklahoma State plays their second top 25 matchup in a row, facing number 23 Kansas State. Number 16 Notre Dame gets a test with number 15 Louisville, and a huge SEC matchup of number 2 Georgia trying to take out number 4 Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Coach Sark said yesterday that he will name the starting quarterback for Saturday today, as Texas will take on Mississippi State at 3:15 to begin their SEC schedule. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. I appreciate those. All right, let's get to some Texans preview here. They're playing the Jaguars. Texans have had the Jaguars number pretty much in recent years. It's not as dominant of a lopsided, I should say, of a record as the Cowboys have with the Giants, but still they have won more than their fair share. But this particular matchup, you got the Jags, who are, I don't know how desperate they are, because 0-3 usually is a death sentence. You're not going to make the playoffs. 0-3, I think you got like a less than 5% chance in the last 30 years of teams who start 0-3 being able to make the playoffs. But there's some issues for the Texans that if they don't address them and we don't see them remedy these issues versus the Jags, they can make that game way too close for comfort, or they can end up pulling the upset over the Texans if the Texans don't fix these issues. The number one thing is third down, period. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. I said it would be the biggest factor in the Texans losing that game versus Minnesota, and turns out it was the biggest factor in the Texans losing that game versus Minnesota. They were in third in versus Minnesota. Their average third down distance. So the average third down distance versus Minnesota was 3rd and 12 in the first half. 3rd and 12 in the first half. And then I believe their first 2 third downs in the second half were 3rd and 16 and 3rd and 11. They faced 3rd and long, 3rd and 7+ yards to gain on 13 of 14 third downs. They faced 3rd and 10+ yards to gain more than any team in the NFL in any game since 2022. So me saying that it was the most important factor in that matchup, it ended up being like the biggest glaring, I would say, most debilitating flaw in the Texans' blueprint to win. Like because it's not only something that it is an issue, it was an issue in that game, and I saw it being an issue leading up into that game because it was an issue for the Texans last season. But miraculously, they had a quarterback, such a high-level young quarterback in C.J. Stroud. Even as a rookie, he led the NFL in completions of conversions of at least 10+ yards. So 3rd and 10+ yards to gain, he led the NFL in completions that converted those situations. So he got you out of a lot of those ugly situations, disastrous situations last season. This season, I don't know if you can afford to put your young quarterback in that 3rd and really long situation game after game and have him bail you out. And he couldn't bail you out in the Minnesota game, as we just talked about. And even in this game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, if you end up in 3rd and long a lot, like I said, it could make that game way too close. And if it's close in the fourth quarter, it could be anybody's contest. So here are the numbers for the Texans. Through 3 weeks, they're the second most dropbacks, at least C.J. Stroud does. Second most dropbacks on 3rd and longs, 3rd and 7+ yards to gain. And the biggest reasons for that is just about how inept they are on early downs. They just cannot figure it out. Right now, the Texans rank in the bottom 10 in yards per play on 1st and 2nd down. So that's a big part of it because they're, for some reason, inefficient, ineffective, and sometimes it's totally inept on 1st and 2nd down or early downs. The Texans are averaging 4.5 yards per play on 1st and 2nd downs, and that's good for 30th in the NFL. That's not going to work. And then the penalties on early downs, too. The pre-snap penalties are killing the Texans. At least they did versus the Vikings. They committed 8 pre-snap violations versus the Vikings. Larry Tunsil's got 10 of them. He's got 10 penalties, I should say, already. But a lot of those are pre-snap penalties by him. And then that on early downs puts you in 2nd and long, and then inevitably puts you in 3rd and long. So that right now is a I think ultimately, to me, it might be the Texans' biggest issue that they got to fix, like team-wise, overall. They got to figure out a way to stop getting third and manageable more often. Because, like I said, being in third and long at the second highest rate in the NFL on dropbacks, that is a recipe for disaster in big games against really good teams. It is, and I fear, like I said, that is a systemic issue. Because I brought it up at the beginning of I brought it up in the offseason because it was something that I saw a lot last season. But like I said, I brought up the stat that miraculously CJ Stroud was still elite in those situations because no quarterback converted more third and 10 plus yards to gain situations than him. But you can't depend on that. And I feel like the offense now almost depends on, it's third and long. CJ will figure it out. CJ will make a play. And it's like, no, CJ does not need, that's too much of a burden to put on your young quarterback. And that could lead to regression from CJ Stroud. And I fear that, that I'm seeing a little bit of it. He's still amazing. But those situations, I think, are, you're seeing an adverse effect overall on the offense. And I don't want to see it on CJ Stroud. So that's number one. Got to stay out of third and longs. And right now for the Texans, that seems to be a big time issue with them. Another thing I think the Texans in this game got to fix, the offensive line, the pass protection. I'm not sure exactly how long or if CJ Stroud is, calling the pass protection or setting the pass protection. Just seems like he is. And I don't know how much of that could help them with this specific issue, but they're not good at picking up twists and stunts. Twists and stunts, they call them games up front. That's when you have defensive linemen who are crossing on the line of scrimmage, who are intersecting on the line of scrimmage. So when you have these games, when you have these twists and stunts playing up front, you have to be able to pass off pass rushers and pass off defenders on the line as you're an offensive lineman. And if that means you got to be able to communicate, you got to be hive-minded, all got to be seeing the same thing and reacting the same way. And if you're not, then, oh man, you could end up having a free rusher at your quarterback. Well, that's what's happening with the Texans. And it happened with Indianapolis and a little bit with Chicago, but Brian Flores, he really exposed it. Their inability to pick up twists and stunts. If you look at the stunt sack rate right now, that's how often quarterback gets sacked via a twist or a stunt, what they call a game. CJ Stroud is the second highest stunt sack rate in the league right now. 22.6% stunt sack rate. That's really high. Last year, it was at 4.7%. The reason it's a bit of a mystery is because last year you had the most injury-riddled offensive line in the NFL in the last 20 years. Like, since they've been keeping track of it. No offense has had more injuries on the O-line than the Texans. And you were still better at picking up twists and stunts last season. You would think now with all the starters available, at least more of them, and more chemistry and continuity and synchronicity between that group, that you'd be better at being hive-minded, being able to pass off those defenders and pass off those pass rushers with twists and stunts, and they're worse. Much worse, actually. So I don't know if that's a CJ Stroud issue pre-snap, not being able to see enough of the indicators. There's going to be a twist or a stunt. I'm sure there are some, and maybe he's not seeing it, and therefore not having an informed decision on the pass protection that he's setting. Or maybe it's got nothing to do with him. Maybe this is all offensive line and them not having proper technique and fundamentals and them not executing, and therefore that's why a twist and a stunt, they work so well against the Texans. Maybe it's both. I'm not sure which one, but they got to fix it because the Jaguars got Joshua Hines Allen, who says his name now, Trevon Walker and Arik Armstead, and they can rush the passer. And they can pose problems because you got multiple. If you got multiple high-level pass rushers, that's when you can start running those games, twists and stunts. Texans can't pick them up. That's an issue. And also an issue for the Texans, somewhat. It hasn't been as glaring since the Colts game, but giving up some explosive plays. And they gave up obviously 50 plus yard bombs versus the Colts in that first game. But the Jaguars, the one thing that's kind of the identity of that offense that they do as well, if not better than everybody else, is explosive play rates. Like they have an explosive offense. You look at explosive play rates by NFL teams after week 3, the Jaguars are right now 3rd in explosive play rate. That's pretty good. Now they got other issues, like efficiency and situational awareness and turnovers. They got some other issues, but they can make some explosive plays. And so they're only averaging like a little less, might be 14, a little less than 14 points per game. But they do have a really high explosive play rate, which means the Texans need to be aware and they need to be on their P's and Q's about giving up deep balls, because Trevor Lawrence has the second highest completion percentage on throws of 20 or more air yards in the air. And that's what they got in trouble with Indianapolis. And remember the high ASS rates for the Texans. The Texans are allowing a really high ASS rate to opposing receivers. That's their average separation score. They're in the, I guess I would say top 7, but bottom 7 of ASS allowed by defenses. And the Jaguars, say what you want about them, they got a pretty good wide receiving core. That's why they can generate these explosive plays. That's something to watch in the game too.
Yeah, I mean,
sure that up.
That's the they're very feast or famine, but that's almost what cost you in that Colts game as well. Mm-hmm. Was a team just taking shots, and when it hits, then they get an easy touchdown, or they get right down there in field goal range over and over again, and Texans just allowed way too many of those. If you can shore that up, the Jaguars have a decent run game. They've averaged pretty well on at least 2 of their games so far this season. They've averaged like over 5 yards a carry, so they're doing pretty well in the run game. Texans have been pretty good at shutting down the run as well. For a lot of these teams, didn't do it as well against Minnesota because they just didn't do anything well against Minnesota.
Seriously.
But that run defense look pretty good, so you want to be able to keep that up. But again, it's Jalen Petrie is the one that you keep watching. He is so important in the run defense, but then he is a guy that gets beat a lot when he needs to be running backwards. He bites a little bit too much. And I would not be surprised at all if Doug Peterson and this Jacksonville team really tries to exploit that with some play action and some other moves to get him to try and come at the ball and then throw it over the top of him.
Yep, the eyes. I agree with you. You can occupy his eyes pretty easily. And if he's not more disciplined with those eyes, he's going to be in the wrong place. But when he's in the right place, his instincts are fantastic. Yeah. But eyes will have you in the wrong place if they're obviously your keys aren't right.
It's
one other thing.
Everything is a discipline on the O-line, discipline in the reads in the defense, discipline of knowing, watching the stunts and everything. Just more discipline. It's just a not very good disciplined team, not a very well disciplined team. If they can figure that out, that is a huge difference in this team on both sides of the ball.
That's a great point. I didn't really break it down to that simplicity, but I think you're right, because they got the talent. The talent is undeniable. That's why everybody was so excited about the offseason. But they have been an undisciplined team early on both sides of the ball. I agree with you 100%. That's on D'Amico. Yep. I love me some D'Amico, but that's on you, D'Amico. Your team's undisciplined. And usually that's people talk about players, coaches often struggling with that. Their teams, not being buttoned up enough. Right, yeah. Not being disciplined enough. That's something he's got to figure out. People were talking. I mean, people had that take on Dan Campbell and Detroit Lions early on. Yeah, man, they take on the personality of their leader, and that means you as a leader need to evolve.
Yes,
if that's the case.
Exactly.
So I like that. All right. That's enough for the Texans stuff there. We'll come back and we'll get into Rod's rant, and we got a Ranger report for you. So we'll get into the Rangers report. We also will talk about the big college football game coming this weekend, top 5 matchup between Bama and Georgia. I'll tell you where I'm leaning. I'll give you some inside nuggets about that matchup, all of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to Rod's rant of the day. I want to talk about the Georgia Bama game a little bit. It'll be the biggest game up until this point of the college football season, first top 5 matchup of the college football season. And I think it's going to end up being a hell of a game. I think Kellen DeBoer is a hell of a coach. There are a couple of factors here. I think, and I don't think people realize how good that Bama secondary has been. This is gonna because I don't trust Georgia's skill positions right now. Georgia's skill positions have been struggling to, in my opinion, to bring that explosive element to the offense. I think Carson Beck is still really good quarterback playing at a high level. We know Georgia's lines of scrimmage, they're loaded. We know Georgia's got their defense is stacked. There's no question about that. I do wonder though if they just have enough skill guys on the outside just win one-on-ones against a team like Bama. Remember, I told you that's why they could overwhelm a team like Clemson because his line of scrimmage wise, Clemson wasn't that overmatched by Georgia because Clemson's lines of scrimmage actually are pretty damn good, but Clemson doesn't have any more of the skill position guys on the outside. That's where they've been struggling. And honestly, I'm noticing Georgia doesn't have enough of that right now. And that's why I wonder if, that's where the advantage will be potentially for Alabama. And this is something to keep your eye on. Alabama's coverage, Alabama's secondary has been really good this year. If you could look at yards per coverage snap, they only got 2 interceptions, but they're 2.89 yards per coverage snap, and that is the best mark in the country by half a yard. So based on that metric, you talk about the best coverage team by half a yard, period. They rank, if you look at Pro Football Focus, they rank them 12th overall in coverage grade, inside the top 7 in coverage grade and EPA per play. And if you go look at, they have allowed only 3 passes of 15 yards this season. We just talked about Texas defense is really good because they've only allowed 7 20-plus yard plays. Alabama's only allowed 3 passes of 15-plus yards the entire season. It's pretty damn good. And they've allowed the 3rd lowest percentage of first downs and touchdowns in the nation via the pass. So right now, secondary is playing really well, and I don't know if Georgia has these skill guys on the outside to be able to win one-on-ones and to be able to win in the passing game against Alabama's secondary. That's one thing I kind of give to Alabama here. That's I don't say it's a glaring advantage, but I think it's an advantage for Alabama in a very evenly matched game between these two teams, 2 top 5 teams. Jalen Milroe, too. Very interesting with Milroe. And Texas plays him. So I kind of went back to my notes. And, when you look at Jalen Milroe as a quarterback, a lot of people think that he's kind of a one-read quarterback and just wants to throw it to his first read. If he doesn't have a first read, then he's gonna abandon the pocket, right, and scramble. And there's still some of his game, but he's a little bit more sophisticated with Kellen DeBoer in that system. But one thing that does translate from last year to this year, different systems, and maybe it's just him as a quarterback. He's got a beautiful deep ball, and they continue to throw it deep. Remember, Kellen DeBoer was obsessed at Washington with the deep ball. Nobody threw it deep more and more successful at throwing it deep than Michael Penix and Washington with those 3 NFL wide receivers. So here at Alabama, where Jalen Milroe last year was a quarterback that loved to throw it deep. Their deep ball rate was probably close to 20% last season, and they continue to throw it deep this year. He has a 12 and a half yards is his average depth of target. He's chunking it downfield. And he holds on to the ball. His average time to throw, over 3 seconds. His average time to throw. So honestly, a lot of times he's just waiting for it to clear deep, and if it don't clear, he's gonna make something happen with his legs. He's, by the way, top 5 in both of those categories, and was last year too. So last year, same formula: hold on to the ball, waiting for the deep balls to clear. If not, it just gives him more time to maneuver, scramble, make plays as a dual threat quarterback. So I would say you want to speed him up. That's what you want to do with Jalen Milroe. And Texas did a great job of it. As a matter of fact, when he played in the SEC title game, if you go look at it, Kirby Smart, and obviously Kirby Smart will break out a very similar game plan because they blitzed Jalen Milroe on 48% of his dropbacks in that SEC title game. And they generated pressure on him on 41% of his dropbacks. He had his lowest passing grade of the season. His only other game that was just as bad, if not worse, was that game versus Texas. I remember he got benched after that game. So if you want to neutralize Jalen Milroe or at least turn him into an ineffective pocket passer or a dual threat quarterback, you got to speed up his internal clock. And you speed it up by blitzing them. Everything speeds up when you blitzes. You got balls. Quarterbacks got to get rid of football. Routes turn into hot routes. They turn into quick routes where the wide receivers are not running deep down the field because they know they don't have a lot of time. So they adjust the routes. Quarterbacks adjust their drops and adjust their internal clock. You can, as a defensive coordinator, speed up a play. You got to blitz it. Now you take a chance that the quarterback could identify the blitz, and some quarterbacks they're better. Quinn's actually better versus the blitz. Arch's numbers actually are pretty good versus blitz because everything is defined. You have to define it. If you're gonna bring another guy, then everybody's got to get on their assignment right away. It's got to be defined, and it's hard to have disguise once you bring that. That's why a lot of coaches now are bringing pressure with zone behind it, so they can still have some disguise element. Don't bring pressure. Like, all right, I'll bring pressure. I'll blitz, but I can have a zone blitz. I'll play zone behind it, which is tough to do because then you have pockets, all right, that can come open. So either way, it's a risk. But I think ultimately for Kirby, you'll see him. He'll blitz the hell out of Jalen Milroe, speed him up, and then force him to make a decision and force him either get rid of the football or to abandon the pocket right away. And that's better than him sitting back there, you having to defend. We talk about this for Lamar Jackson. Why do I have to defend 3 or 4 different plays in one? I got to defend the initial play because he holds onto the ball for 3 seconds. So I got to defend that play. And then when he decides to abandon the pocket, I'm defending the scramble drill. So I got to defend that play, defending the scramble drill. And then on top of the scramble drill, when he becomes a runner, Jalen Milroe, elite athlete, when he decides to run, then I got to defend a run play like he's a running back in the open field, by the way. Because usually by that time the play is deteriorated and all my guys have dropped downfield, and I got just 300-pounders who are tired as hell from running around for 4 or 5 seconds trying to chase this dude. And I got to do that how many plays potentially in the game? 15? Nah, I can't. I speed him up, blitz him, and then we know we actually know where we can force him, right? If we blitz him from, usually you can. Sometimes he'll have a spin move and be able to abandon the pocket and break contain, but at least also you can force contain. You know where you're forcing him. You can force him to one side or the other too. So I think that's what you'll see. And also how they defend. I don't know how Georgia is going to defend Ryan Williams. That'll be interesting too because he's a stud.
He's just 17.
He's a freak. Man.
He's supposed to be a senior in high school.
Yeah, I don't.
And he's one of the best wide receivers in college football. There's no one. And you're like, could you imagine having to play against him in high school football?
It's not fair.
That guy's one of the best players in college football. And he's supposed to be a senior in high school. I'll say for Alabama, one of the things they need to, if they can stop Arian Smith, the wide receiver for Georgia, that seemed to be one of the keys that Kentucky focused on. It's one of Carson Beck's favorite targets. They held him to 2 catches for like 11 yards, something like that in that game. Okay, they really slowed him down. If you can take away some of the things that are Carson Beck's, the guys that he feels comfortable with, and make him throw to the younger guys, that is where you get him a little off kilter, where he doesn't have that same connection. He's used to having Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, where he knew exactly where they were. He's building that rapport with some of the seniors that are there now. But if you kind of try and make the young guys beat you, Arian Smith is that guy that's been the catalyst in the wins so far, but he wasn't there for that Kentucky game, and they were not able to move the ball downfield very well.
I know. I feel like I'm leaning Bama in this game. I feel like, and Kellen DeBoer, I just think it's underrated. People don't appreciate Kellen DeBoer and how good he is. And he wins right away. Like everywhere he's gone, there's been no rebuild. There's no build up or crescendo. He just starts winning immediately wherever he goes.
And the line has shifted your way. Alabama is now a half-point favorite. I
feel like Bama, and it's in Tuscaloosa.
It's in Tuscaloosa. That's the reason why I give it to Bama, is it's in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna go Bama here. I feel like I'm going Bama in this. And here's I guess the question, yeah, because it's in Georgia. It's got a lot of distractions right now going on. The team, they're still going to be a dominant team. You still going to have to see them in the college football playoff, and hell, you still got to see them again in the SEC title game. I don't know, but right now I feel like Bama may be playing better football overall than Georgia. Hard to say because it's Georgia's number 2 in the country, but we shall see. All right. Before we get out of here, let's hit the Rangers report before we end our segment. Let's get to the Rangers report.
The Rangers report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer.
All right. Shout out to the Rangers, who I saw this and they lost their finale. They lost the Coliseum finale, which was a big deal. Okay, Patrick, did you notice any, I don't know, heathen activity, any criminal activity, guys doing crazy stuff?
So the reality
is it was a sellout though.
It was a sellout. What was the number I gave? It's 46,889 people showed up. There was one guy who ran on the field, wasn't even a streaker, fully dressed. A guy ran on the field. But no, it turned out it was just much sadder. It was just sadder than it was funny because it was just a lot of fans being like, they took all of our teams. Like Golden State Warriors used to be there. The Raiders used to be there. And now the A's are leaving. And the A's aren't even going to Vegas next year. They're going to Sacramento for a couple of years while they build the stadium in Vegas. Man. So they're just like, we just have to get out of here because
we just didn't want to be with you. We just didn't want to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is. But it was more sad. They were all doing the chant at the end of the game. And, the players are going out and trying to rally the crowd up. So it was more sad than it was funny to watch in reality.
Agree. No. Yeah, you're right of that. My wife was born in Oakland, actually. Shout out, because that is sad, man.
No more teams.
Sad for the community. But the Rangers dropped the finale, the Coliseum finale, 3-2. How about this one? A little factoid for you: the Rangers finished with 203 total wins at the facility. Good for the most by a visiting team in Oakland. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's a random factor. And shout out here, another factor from Kennedy Landry. The Rangers have played in 6 ballpark finales now. 3 of them have been their own stadiums, of course. They've lost all of them except the ballpark finale in Arlington. But that was their 6th ballpark finale. There you go. Nice little factoid for you for the Rangers. But that's about it. Rangers getting close to ending this thing. You said this is their last series of the season, correct?
Yes. And you finish up. The baseball season finishes up this weekend, except I believe there's a make good game on Monday, a make good doubleheader because of inclement weather and maybe the hurricane has knocked some games off this weekend.
Yeah.
That'll be
Helene.
Yeah, that'll be on Monday. But the season wraps up on Sunday. Basically, the normal regular season MLB wraps up on Sunday. So go beat them Angels. Finish on a strong note.
Damn right. And then we'll be talking about playoff baseball. Not for the Rangers, though, but for the Astros, probably. Coming up next week. All right. Thank you, Patrick. That's our Rangers report brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer. We'll come back. And when we come back, we'll get into Who Said That right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn.
The Rangers Report is brought to you by Texas Truck and Trailer, your premier truck accessory dealer.
Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a 512 Friday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick plays jams from local bands and artists, very talented human beings that you have a chance to catch live right here in the ATX. Who are we jamming right now, Patrick?
This is Lizzie Carr. She is part of that big benefit show happening Sunday at Radio East. I'll be out there following the Texans game. There's no Cowboys, so no reason not to join us. Benefiting the Alzheimer's Association and some of our friends in the Austin Music family who have family members suffering from Alzheimer's right now, giving them a little respite. It'll be a lot of fun and a lot of great music out there on Sunday.
Love that. Great cause. Going to be some great music, and we appreciate you, Patrick, bringing that to our attention, I should say. Here is also something that Patrick, we appreciate him doing. Is coming up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out at the Horn ATX on X. He simply wants to know how many points will Texas allow against Mississippi State, and 47% of you who took the survey say here that they will score between 8 and 13 points. 33% of you are with me who say 1 to 7 points. So we shall see on Saturday. Time to play Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify, recall who said that.
The pre-snap definitely has been addressed. Again, we spent time on that, talked about it, we addressed it, and we see on Sunday that it's been addressed, and we'll handle it really well. Offensive line had a great day at work today. Everybody's dialed in. Everybody understands who we are, what we're about, and what it's going to take for us to get back on track, and that's what we're focused on.
All right, that is D'Amico Ryans, and he's saying that they got the pre-snap penalties addressed, so I'm hoping that's the case. We'll see on Saturday.
I don't think that's a 1 week we fixed it thing.
I don't. You know what?
I like the confidence, but I do not think that's a no. They said they didn't know they weren't supposed to move before the ball. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to take a while, but you can get it fixed for the playoffs. But it's going to be a constant. It's going to be a process throughout the season. Discipline,
No
discipline.
Yeah, might be the word of the season, if you will, for the Texans. Good stuff there, Patrick. Appreciate you as always. Appreciate all you guys for listening and for watching. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other and have a great weekend. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.